Chapter 1656. Giant Egg Flave. It was the most famous arena in the entire Fiori Kingdom. It was located at the border of Crocus, on top of a tall mountain. If one were to look down from above, it would be an ancient Roman arena located on top of a tall mountain. The arena was surrounded by circular and ladder-shaped spectator seats. In the middle of the arena was a vast open space. A few magnificent statues stood around the arena, looking very solemn and ancient. Such an arena was the venue for the annual Great Magic Showdown that would determine the ranking of all the major Magus guilds in the Kingdom of Fiori. There was no better arena than this in the entire Fiori Kingdom. In addition to the annual Great Magic Battle, it was said that not only the major guilds and famous magic shooters, but even the king and members of the parliament would watch the ceremony. In terms of format, it was extremely huge. If one were to appear here, then even the least famous person would be known by the world. Of course, whether it was good or bad fame, it would be spread out. However, it had to be said that as the venue for the annual Great Magic Battle in the entire Fiori Kingdom, there was no better place than here. In such a venue, at a certain moment, a magic circle suddenly rotated in the middle of the open space and bloomed with light. In the light, a door slowly appeared and was pushed open by a hand. Soon after, a few people walked out of the door. They were Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxes, and Gadjaloo. "Is this the giant egg flave bird?" Mira murmured. "The venue for the Great Demon Battle exhibition is here? Why is there no one here?" Gadjaloo looked around and saw that there was no one in the arena and grinned. "Does this mean that we've gotten first place in the qualifiers?" "Well, that's not impossible." Laxes looked around and said matter-of-factly. "After all, it only took us 5 minutes from departure to arrival." 5 minutes! This was the time it took for Fairy Tale B to pass the preliminaries. This speed was simply indescribably fast. However, who told the members of Fairy Tale B to use the flying method to move around? In the intricate maze in the air, Noah and his group did not waste their energy walking through the corridors. Instead, they directly identified the direction and flew towards the venue. Along the way, the maze in the sky changed shape a few times, completely changing the path inside and even the directions of up, down, left, and right. It even threw the contestants inside into the air and directly eliminated them. However, it didn't affect Noah and the others who were flying in the right direction. Hence, Noah and his group flew to the end of the maze and found a door. After pushing open the door, they arrived at their destination. The entire process only took 5 minutes. Could it be that he still couldn't get first place in the preliminaries? In fact, no one was too confident in their thoughts. Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations to everyone from Fairy Tale for passing the preliminaries. Accompanied by such a humorous voice, a short judge with a pumpkin on his head appeared in front of everyone with wonderful dance steps. "According to the contestant list, you all seem to be from the Fairy Tale B team, right? Congratulations on getting first place in the preliminaries." Hearing the pumpkin's words, the 5 of them, including Noah, smiled slightly. And at that moment, the magical array rotating on the ground once again bloomed with light, and a door appeared once again. Noah and his group immediately turned their heads and looked in the direction of the door. From the door, 4 men and 1 woman slowly walked out. The 4 men and 1 woman who walked out of the door directly met the eyes of Noah and his group. Immediately after, they were stunned on the spot. "You!" The leader of the group, a man with short blonde hair, had a serious expression on his face. "You are Fairy Tale?" Noah and his group also looked at the other party and saw a guild emblem on his body. "That's..." Julian covered his mouth slightly and softly exclaimed. "That's the coat of arms of the saber-tooth." With one sentence, the entire atmosphere of the scene suddenly became heavy. "Hey, hey, hey!" Olyaga said with an extremely unfriendly expression. "Why would a trashy guild at the bottom appear in a place like this?" "Because they passed the preliminaries, everyone." Pumpkin didn't seem to notice the heavy atmosphere of the scene and giggled. "Also, congratulations to the members of Saber-Tooth for passing the preliminaries. You're in 2nd place." What? Sting said in surprise. "We are 2nd place? 2nd place." Roger couldn't help but frown. "We are actually 2nd place? What a strange experience. We're only in 2nd place." Lucius pressed down on the hat on his head. "At least, in my memory, Such a thing has never happened before. Tisk. Alyaga's expression became a little ugly. In other words, we lost to a trashy guild that has been at the bottom for thousands of years? Suddenly, the atmosphere in the air became dangerous. In an instant, the 4 magic shooters from Sabertooth all released extremely obvious hostility towards Noah and his group. Facing this hostility, not to mention Noah, Mira, and Julian, Laxus's eyes became fierce. Gadjaloo took a step forward with a vicious look on his face. What? Do you want to fight? Looking at Gadjaloo, who came forward, Roger's eyes were cold. Gadjaloo. Gadjaloo immediately met Roger's gaze and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. Looks like you want to fight. Roger clenched his fists slightly and was about to step forward, but he was stopped by Sting. Roger, I know you want to fight with Gadjaloo, just like I want to fight with Nazgul. Sting placed his hand on Logue's shoulder as he stared at Noah and the others. Suddenly he smiled. So, I won't allow this kind of thing to happen before me. Roger glanced at Sting, then looked deeply at Gadjaloo, and then silently retreated. Hey! Gadjaloo seemed to want to say something, but he was stopped by Noah. Okay, Gadjaloo, Noah said directly. If you want to fight, wait until the official competition starts. There will be plenty of opportunities. Don't worry about this. Gadjaloo's movements paused, and after a cold snort, he also obediently retreated. Suddenly, Sting and his group immediately understood. Among the 5 people in front of them, it was obvious that Noah was the one in charge. You are that Noah Doria, right? Sting first sized up Noah, then looked at Lucius. Yes, he seems to have killed a Saint Great Magus 7 years ago. That's right, and he's also recognized by Makarov as the next leader of Fairy Tail. He seems to have a deeper reputation than Kilda's, who is known as the strongest magic shooter in the guild. Lucius smiled slightly. In terms of strength, he is probably not weaker than Kilda's. That's what my memory tells me. Is that so? Sting looked at Noah with an insufferably arrogant smile on his face. Very good. If not, it would be boring to snatch our first place. I'm looking forward to you a little. Don't let me be too bored, the next president of the Fallen Guild. Hearing this, Noah raised his eyes, met the gazes of Sting and his group, and spoke very calmly. I hope so. The lukewarm words made Sting ask for a snub. He curled his lips and stopped talking. At this moment, Noah suddenly felt an extremely intense gaze on him. At that moment, Noah turned his head and looked over, taking in the sight of a young girl. Chapter 1657. When Noah's eyes met with the owner of the intense gaze that was directed at him, the image of a delicate and beautiful young lady that entered his eyes involuntarily caused Noah to be slightly startled. That was because the extremely delicate and beautiful girl's eyes were full of all kinds of complicated emotions. Noah's words could clearly distinguish the main body of those emotions. Among them, there was nostalgia, excitement, resentment, touching, and everything else. It was complicated to the extreme. Noah's eyebrows furrowed slightly when he sensed the extremely complicated gaze. Why is she looking at me like that? Just as Noah was puzzled, the members of Sabertooth seemed to have noticed the girl's abnormality. You know? Sting asked in confusion. What's wrong? Rog, Lucius, Alyaga, and the others immediately gathered their gazes on the girl named Yuno, causing her to close her eyes. Her delicate and beautiful face became tense without any expression. No, it's nothing. Although Sting, Rog, Lucius, Alyaga, and the others were still somewhat puzzled, they did not pay attention to Yuno anymore. Noah, on the other hand, was stunned once again and fell into deep thought. Yuno. He seemed to have heard this name somewhere before. Could it be that the girl named Yuno is someone I know? With that in mind, Noah began to search his memories. Unfortunately, before Noah could find anything from his memories, the magic formation in the center of the open space suddenly lit up again, and another door appeared, attracting everyone's attention. The next moment, the door opened, and a team walked out. Looking at that team, Noah could no longer search his memories, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. Not only Noah, but Mira, Jubian, and Gadjaloo's expressions also became somewhat cold. Laxus's eyes became sharp, and he spoke in a low voice. Bastard Dad, did you really do it? Yo-ho-ho, another team has passed the preliminaries. Pumpkin began his introduction with a chuckle. Third place in the preliminaries, Raven Tail. The group of people who appeared from the door were the magic shooters from the Raven Tail. The leader of the group was a man with a tall stature. He wore an eye-catching golden armor with a pitch-black cloak on his back and a thick golden mask on his face. The armored man turned his head and looked in the direction of Noah's group. Under the mask, a creepy whisper sounded. Fairy Tale. As soon as they entered the arena, the Archmage from Raven Tail stared at Noah's group. However, these people did not do anything, nor did they say anything. They all moved to a corner and stayed there, collectively falling into silence. However, Noah stared intently at the armored man. After a long while, a mocking glint flashed in his deep, dark eyes. Are you going to use this trick? Laxus, who clearly saw the mocking light in Noah's eyes, pretended to be calm as he spoke. Did you discover anything? Of course. Noah retracted his gaze and threw this sentence at Laxus. However, let's just let them be for now. Is that okay? Laxus could not help but ask. Those guys will probably do something to us during the competition. The more they do, the more embarrassing it will be when they are exposed, Noah said calmly. Let's see what kind of performance that group of clowns is going to give. Laxus nodded and did not say anything else. Time passed under these circumstances. About 10 minutes later, the magic array lit up again. This time, the people who came out of the door were the first guild members who did not have any malicious intent towards Fairy Tale. The 4th place in the preliminaries is here, Pumpkin said. 4th place, Lamia Scale. Hearing this guild name, Noah immediately raised his eyebrows and shifted his gaze. Long time no see, Sir Noah. The first person to greet Noah was none other than Jura. Ever since the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease, mission, we haven't seen each other for 7 years. Tura came in front of Noah with a happy expression. It's great that you were able to return safely from Sky Wolf Island. Thank you for your trouble, Mr. Tura. Noah looked at Tura and sighed. You've changed a lot too. After 7 years, Tura's image had indeed changed a lot. Now, not only did Tura dress like a monk, but he also grew a long beard. Compared to 7 years ago, he was more reserved and less aggressive. However, this did not mean that Tura had become weak. On the contrary, this sorcerer who was only at the bottom of the 10 great sorcerers 7 years ago had now risen to the 5th place. Noah could clearly feel that there was a surging amount of magic power hidden within Jura's body. His demonic power was on par with Kilda's. At this time, another person walked out from Tura's side. Oh, do you still remember me? You are. Noah looked over and immediately recognized the other person. You are Leo? Correct. Leo suddenly smiled. Where's Gray? Is he not going to participate? Gray is in another team. Noah responded with a smile. Don't worry, he will be here soon. You're really confident. Leo spread out his hands. Well, I'll be looking forward to it. During the conversation, another team came out of the magic array. 5th place in the preliminaries, Blue Pegasus. Along with Pumpkin's voice, a group of people that Noah was familiar with appeared from the magic array. Sniff, 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 sniff. A short, fat man with a strange appearance wearing a white suit moved his big nose as if he had discovered something. He suddenly raised his finger and pointed in Noah's direction as if he was posing for a post. There's a familiar smell. Oh. Echo looked in the direction that the former was pointing. Isn't that Fairy Tale's team? Sure enough, Fairy Tale is here as well. Ivan flicked his bangs. I wonder how those beautiful ladies are doing now. Humph. Lotus turned her head away with a cold expression. I'm not thinking about them. I just feel a little lonely if they don't come. Noah and the others were speechless. Just then, Iyaz suddenly widened his eyes and pointed in Myra's direction. Look carefully, although Miss Alusha isn't here, Miss Mira is. As soon as Iyaz's voice fell, Xiang, Lian, and Fan suddenly disappeared. When they reappeared, they actually formed a triangle and surrounded Mira in the middle. They knelt down on one knee as if they were proposing marriage with a sincere look on their faces. Oh, I didn't expect to see Miss Mira here. I'm so lucky. Echo, I didn't come here because I like you. I just feel a little sad if I don't come. Lotus, I'm your fan, Miss Mira. Please give me a chance to have dinner with you. Ivan, The three extremely good-looking men surrounded Mira and tried to please her. Mira was a little confused by their enthusiasm. However, in the next second, Mira showed an extremely perfect smile and reached out her hand to hug Noah's arm. "I'm really sorry. Although I appreciate your kindness, we're going to get married after the Great Demon Battle Arts competition. You're all good people. I hope you can find a good girl." The three of them, who were still maintaining their gentlemanly smiles, were stunned by the good guy card. Their faces stiffened. Immediately, the three men stared at Noah with bitter resentment. Noah was speechless. These guys were still the same as before. No one dared to compliment them. Chapter 1658. Just like that, time gradually passed as he continued to wait. After that, the sixth place also appeared. It was a guild called Mermaid Heel. It was said that there were only female members and it was called the Dancers of the Sea. Of course, the members who represented the guild in the Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition were all female. And the person who led these members was a girl with long, straight, purplish-black hair with a white ribbon tied around her head. She looked cold and elegant, and she held a katana in her hand. When this girl appeared, she cast an extremely intense gaze at Noah, just like Yuno before. However, the other party's gaze was not like Yuno's, which contained all kinds of complicated emotions, but only an extremely pure examination. It was as if she knew Noah, making people feel that the other party had a certain degree of attachment to Noah. Not only that, among the members behind the girl, one of them was wearing a long robe that covered his face and also cast a gaze at Noah. Although that gaze was not very intense, it carried a trace of ridicule and ridicule. Noah was really confused. Why did he feel that the people who came here had an affair with him? Apui, it was like they had a grudge against him? Moreover, they were all girls. What was going on? Allah Mira tightly hugged Noah's arm. Her smile was extremely sweet and warm. Noah is really popular. Undoubtedly, when saying this sentence, whether it was her expression or her voice, Mira was very sweet, but Noah felt a trace of coldness from the bottom of his heart, which made his back start to feel cold. Needless to say, this was the rhythm of a vinegar jar that was about to overturn. Noah could only twitch his face, secretly muttering in his heart. If it was Shang Tianzi, Luo Hao, and Wendy, then forget it, but when did he provoke those girls? It seemed that after going back, it was necessary to investigate the origin of these people. After Noah made up his mind, the seventh-place team appeared from the magic array. The team that appeared belonged to a guild called Cotter Cerberus. It was a guild that was quite famous even 7 years ago, and had many outstanding magic shooters. In this guild, it was said that not only were there extremely powerful magic shooters, but even the guild leader had a very good relationship with Makarov. And this guild was the exact opposite of Mermaid Heel. It was a group of hot-blooded men, and their emotions were very easily agitated. At the very least, after coming out of the magic circle, those guys gathered in a corner and shouted at the top of their lungs. They were so moved that they shed tears while shouting slogans. Just like Blue Pegasus, this guild was also incomparably strange. It was worth mentioning, the guild leader of Blue Pegasus had a very good relationship with Makarov. Noah really wanted to ask, "Grandpa, do you only make friends with strange personalities?" It was a pity that Makarov was not present. Otherwise, he would have lost all his face. Seeing that the seventh place had been decided, Noah and the others began to feel nervous. "There's only one team left to pass the preliminaries," Julian said nervously. "Can the other team successfully enter the preliminaries?" This was why the others were nervous. Only one team could pass the preliminaries. If Alusha's team couldn't find the exit of the maze, then they would be in big trouble. Tisk! Gajalu couldn't help but click his tongue. "That fire dragon guy, what is he doing?" "It shouldn't be a problem," Mira comforted. "There's still Alusha, they can definitely pass." "Yeah," Noah said as he looked in the direction of the magic array. "Moreover, it doesn't matter if we can pass or not. At least our guild has been selected, and we can at least enter the top 8 this year. But are you satisfied with just being in the top 8? Laxus seemed to have seen through Noah's thoughts and smirked. "After the Great Demon Battle exhibition, it will be time for you to inherit the position of guild leader. Will you let your guild stop at the top 8? Do I need to explain that?" Noah smiled knowingly. "Of course not." Mira, Julian, Gajalu, and Laxus smiled at the same time. Clang dash. At this moment, the magic array finally lit up again. Everyone's gazes gathered on it. Bang dash. Accompanied by a loud noise, the door was violently pushed open. Then, a group of 5 people fell out of the door together, landing on the ground one after another, causing a series of painful howls. Looking at the 5 people who jumped out of the door, everyone present had different expressions. The eyes of Noah's group lit up. Except for Noah's group, the rest of the people showed a shocked expression. The last place of the preliminaries is here, Pumpkin announced. 8th place Fairy Tale A team. Wah! What? Naz, who was pressed at the bottom, shouted. We're 8th place? Last place. Gray covered his face. How embarrassing. This is already very good. Lucy rubbed her butt and stood up with a pained expression. No matter what, we passed the preliminaries. That's right. Elisha cheered for everyone. The ranking in the preliminaries doesn't mean anything. All we need to do is to keep winning. Before that. Wendy, who was pressed down by Elisha, rolled her eyes. Sister Elisha, please get up quickly. The armor is so heavy. Suddenly, the silence in the arena was shattered by Elisha and the others. Seeing Elisha's group making a mess, the other guilds looked at each other. As expected of Fairy Tale, Kara praised from the bottom of her heart. You actually made it into 2 teams. Amazing. Naz de Ragnar. Sting stared at Naz with an excited expression. You finally appeared. Miss Elisha. EE made a post. You really didn't let me down. The others also had different reactions, which made Noah and the others look at each other. Seriously. Noah could only conclude with this sentence. The preliminaries are already so noisy. What are we going to do later? On the other side, Pumpkin coughed and attracted everyone's attention. The top 8 teams have been decided. The preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition have ended. The rankings of the guilds are as follows. 1st place, Fairy Tale B Team. 2nd place, Saber Tooth. 3rd place, Raven Tail. 4th place, Lamia Scale. 5th place, Blue Pegasus. 6th place, Mermaid Heel. 7th place, Cotter Cerberus. 8th place, Fairy Tale A Team. The above 8 teams will participate in the official competition of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition. Pumpkin raised a finger. The official competition will be held tomorrow. The venue will be filled with spectators from all over the kingdom and even from other parts of the continent. The king and the council will also be paying attention to this competition. Please be prepared. Don't make a fool of yourself, Pumpkin. As soon as he finished speaking, the people of the 8 teams began to look at the people they cared about. Noah's gaze swept across the teams and people standing in the venue. His eyes flickered slightly. The Great Demon Battle Exhibition would begin tomorrow. When the time came, no one knew what would happen. However, no matter what happened, Noah only had one goal. The Fiori Kingdom. 1st place. Chapter 1659. At the same time as the preliminaries ended, the image of the giant pumpkin appeared once again in the sky above Coloches. At this point, the preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition have ended. The 8 teams have been selected, and the official competition will begin tomorrow. Welcome to the venue. After leaving this sentence, the image of the giant pumpkin disappeared. Then, the steel city floating above Coloches suddenly shook, and all the contestants who were still inside were shaken out. Then, like a mirage, it disappeared. Thus, the screams of the sorcerers in the sky above Coloches echoed through the night sky as they fell to the ground one by one. The residents of Coloches watched this scene with great interest, and they discussed it animatedly. Although it's just the preliminaries, it seems quite interesting. Too bad there's no live broadcast. I wonder which guilds the teams that passed the preliminaries are from. Does that even need to be said? There must be a saber-tooth, right? Lamia Scale, who has always been in 2nd place in previous years, must have also been selected. In the previous Great Demonic Battle Exhibition matches, the results of the Blue Pegasus were also very good. I heard that there's also Mermaid Heel, who only accepts female members. Their strength is also quite good. Looks like this year's Great Demon Battle Exhibition will be quite interesting. Of course, I heard that there's even one of the top 10 saint sorcerers among the contestants. No matter how I think about it, it won't be boring. Are you serious? Then I must go watch it tomorrow. Me too. Me too. For a moment, the whole of Coloches was filled with the noise of the residents. One must know that the preliminaries started at midnight. Now that the preliminaries were over, it was indeed very rare for it to still be so lively. However, in order to be able to watch the competition tomorrow, the residents chatted animatedly as they returned home, preparing to sleep early and wake up early. During this time, no one mentioned fairy tale. Perhaps, in the eyes of these people, the guild that had been at the bottom for 10,000 years must have been eliminated. Therefore, when the rankings of the qualifiers were announced the next day, the audience's expressions would be very interesting. It was something that could be predicted. On the other hand, some of the people involved were very unhappy. Damn it! On the way back to the hotel, Naz had been very unwilling. Why did Noah's team get first place, but my team only got last place? Are you still thinking about this? Lucy rubbed her forehead as if she had a headache. Didn't I say that passing the preliminaries is already very good? Not good at all. Naz shouted. Our goal is to get first place. Our goal is to be the champion of the Fiori Kingdom, not the champion of the qualifier, Gray said impatiently. Of the 8 teams that have passed the preliminaries, our guild has occupied 2 of the slots. One of them has even won first place in the preliminaries. You should be satisfied, Smelly Flame. I still don't feel good. Nazi pointed at Lucy. So Lucy, hurry up and let hubby eat you. Why do I have to be eaten if you're unhappy? Lucy couldn't help but complain. Also, of all the people who can eat, it has to be hubby. That's enough. Stop arguing. Alyssa was getting impatient. Tomorrow is the official competition. Save some energy for me and think about what to do tomorrow. But, if it's a competition, what exactly will it be? Wendy tilted her head and looked a little uneasy. I feel a little nervous. Well, it's best to have a direct confrontation. Gray pulled his collar. If that's the case, we have no possibility of losing. Aha! Lucy laughed dryly. I hope that everything is not solved with violence. In the end, Alusha, Nazi, Gray, Lucy, and Wendy were chatting happily about the Great Demon Battle exhibition. They were no different from the residents of Clocaska. On the other hand, Noah, Mira, Julian, Gadjaloo, and Laxus didn't say much. They quietly walked behind Alusha and the others with a helpless expression. It's always so noisy no matter what. Gadjaloo curled his lips. When will it be quieter? Isn't it good? Zhu Bian smiled. After all, it's a ceremony. A ceremony should be lively. Mira held Noah's arm and walked with Noah while smiling. Why don't our guild hold a ceremony too? I'm not against it. Laxus closed his eyes and crossed his arms as he slowly opened his mouth. As long as that old man's wallet is enough. In other words, these people were also enjoying it. Noah could only look at his companions in amusement, but his heart was unbelievably calm. At this moment, a voice sounded in Noah's heart. Seeing how noisy these people are, I also feel a sense of tranquility. What an incredible group of people. Hearing this voice, Noah was startled at first, then he smiled silently in his heart. But this is the fairy tale. Is that so? Athena was a little skeptical, but at the same time, she seemed to agree with him. I more or less understand why you're so obsessed with this so-called guild. As soon as Athena's words fell, another voice sounded in Noah's heart. It's indeed incredible. Aster rarely said such rational and emotional words. In the past, I've never seen a human who can easily affect the mood of an elf. After all, the relationship between humans and elves was specious. At least, in the world of the sword dance of the elves, if a human wanted to affect the mood of an elf, unless they did something extremely bad and made the elves furious. If they wanted to make the elves feel better and closer to humans, they would have to offer a sword dance and divine music ceremony. However, the group of people in the fairy tale relied on their own actions to naturally affect the mood of the elves. No wonder Aster gave them such an incredible evaluation. In this regard, Noah just smiled. But this is the fairy tale. The same sentence, but it was approved by both Aster and Athena, and they fell into silence. At this moment, Mira, who was holding Noah's hand, suddenly spoke. Noah in front. Hearing this, Noah subconsciously looked to the front and stopped in his tracks. His companions also followed Noah and stopped. This was because, in the middle of the road, a person stood there, blocking everyone's path. Who? A gust of wind blew past, and the snow-white coat on the girl's body fluttered. The snow-white girl stood under the moonlight, and a pair of beautiful eyes stared at them. There were indescribable waves in her eyes. Looking at the delicate and beautiful girl under the moonlight, Elusha's expression froze. You're the archmage of the saber-tooth? The girl who blocked their path and suddenly appeared here was Suno of the saber-tooth. Ignoring Elusha's question, Suno lifted her feet and slowly walked over. Naz and Gray almost reflexively clenched their fists and planned to go forward. However, before Naz and Gray could take a step forward, their shoulders were tightly pressed down. At this moment, Naz and Gray were startled at the same time. They turned their heads and looked behind them. The person who entered Naz and Gray's eyes was Noah. Noah! Naz and Gray were surprised. Noah shook his head, patted Naz and Gray's shoulders, and immediately walked past them. He went to the front of the group and met Suno's gaze. Noah understood. This young girl was definitely here for him. Chapter 1660. An extremely silent and strange atmosphere pervaded the air. At this moment, there was only Noah's group on the huge street. On the opposite side, the girl named Xuanai seemed to be riding on the moonlight as she quietly walked towards Noah's group step by step. However, in Xuanai's eyes that were filled with strong willpower, there was no one else other than Noah. As if she didn't see the existence of the other people in Fairy Tale at all, Xuanai came to a distance of 2 to 3 meters away from Noah and stared straight at Noah. Looking at the gentle yet strong girl's eyes, Noah confirmed one thing in his heart. As expected, this girl named Xuanai had some kind of connection with him. In addition, Noah felt that the name was familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere before. Noah felt that he should know her. However, he definitely wasn't familiar with her. With Noah's memory, if she really knew him, then Noah definitely wouldn't have forgotten her. Therefore, she shouldn't be familiar with him. It was even possible that they had only met once, or even just met by chance. However, if that was the case, then there was a problem. The girl named Xuanai looked at Noah with eyes that clearly contained very complicated and strong feelings. In a situation where they had only met once, or even just met by chance, was it possible for a person to have such strong feelings for another person? Just as Noah was thinking about this question, the girl named Xuanai spoke. Moreover, the moment she spoke, everyone present stood up in shock. Please leave Fairy Tale. An extremely sudden and shocking sentence came out of Xuanai's mouth just like that. W.H. What? Everyone exclaimed in shock. Leave Fairy Tale? Noah couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. Noah had thought about why Xuanai came to find him. However, no matter how much he thought about it, Noah didn't expect that Xuanai would say such a sentence the moment she opened her mouth. Leave Fairy Tale? This girl named Xuanai came in front of him just to make him leave Fairy Tale? Why? You bastard! Naz raised his fist and shouted without hesitation. It's impossible for Noah to leave Fairy Tale. Xuanai didn't care about Naz's shouts at all. She only stared at Noah, as if Noah was the only person left in the whole world. She only showed excessive attachment to Noah. This made Naz's heart burn with anger. Just as he was about to say something, he was immediately stopped by Elusha. Enough, Naz. Elusha looked at Xuanai with a serious expression. Let's leave this to Noah. The rest of the people, including Mira, also nodded. Their eyes were focused on Noah and Xuanai, choosing to watch from the sidelines. It was only then that Noah reacted. He frowned deeply and said, That's right. Why? Hearing Noah's question, Xuanai said without hesitation. This guild doesn't deserve you. You should be in the Fiori Kingdom's strongest magic guide guild, not this kind of guild at the bottom. This was another sentence that was out of everyone's expectations. Gadjaloo, who originally thought that the people from Saber-Tooth were here to find trouble, interrupted in an extremely bored manner. So you're here to poach? How boring. These words infuriated Xuanai. What can you understand? Xuanai's gaze was like an arrow, shooting at the group of people behind Noah. This lord is a sorcerer who belongs to the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. He used to be, and he still is, but he is no longer your fairy tale. The stubbornness and strangeness in Xuanai's words made the group of magic shooters from Fairy Tale look at each other in dismay. It sounded like the other party was belittling and looking down on Fairy Tale. But everyone felt that compared to this, Xuanai seemed to care more about the title of the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. Indeed, currently, the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom was Sabertooth. Could it be that this girl was here to show off? But what did that have to do with Noah? Everyone was puzzled. Not to mention the rest of the people. Even Noah was a little confused. It was just that Noah at least understood Xuanai's meaning. In other words, Noah looked at Xuanai. Do you want me to join Sabertooth? Yes. Xuanai nodded heavily, her tone revealing a strong emotion that had never been seen before. You should be a sorcerer from the strongest guild in the Kingdom of Fiori. You shouldn't stay in a guild that has always been at the bottom. Please leave, Fairy Tale. Only Sabertooth is worthy of my lord. After saying this, Xuanai's gaze swept over the group of people behind Noah. You should be the ones who know Lord Noah's ability the best. Don't tell me that you think the current Fairy Tale is worthy of this lord? Xuanai's criticism, whether intentional or not, made everyone completely angry. You are called Xuanai, right? Elisha took a step forward and looked straight at Xuanai. Although I don't know why you are so obsessed with Noah, but I can tell you with certainty that Noah's place is Fairy Tale. This, no matter what, will not change. Exactly. Lucy could not help but speak up. Indeed. In the past, Fairy Tale was at the bottom of the Kingdom of Fiori. But today, we've also passed the preliminaries and confirmed our position as one of the top 8 guilds. For the next year, we'll be at least one of the top 8 guilds. Moreover, we are not satisfied with just being in the top 8. Gray glanced at Xuanai. Maybe you are right, with Noah's ability, he should be in the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. That is why we are here. Wendy's heart seemed to be filled with unlimited courage, and for the first time, she spoke with a resolute and decisive tone. We will definitely win in the Great Magic Battle Exhibition, and become the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom once again. That's right. Naz fiercely punched his fist, and his eyes became sharp. If Noah should only be in the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom, then this guild can only be Fairy Tale. Everyone's words were filled with a strong will, and Xuanai could not help but take 2 steps back, and her eyes were slightly shaken. However, this slight wavering immediately disappeared. That is impossible, Xuanai said with a trembling voice. The strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom can only be Sabertooth. Oh! Laxus slightly narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. Then, do you want to try? Thus, the atmosphere at the scene transitioned to a very dangerous level. Noah's eyebrows were tightly knitted, and he was puzzled by Xuanai's unusual attitude towards him. This girl did not seem to have any hostility towards him. It should be said that it was the opposite, and every word and sentence of Xuanai revealed a kind of extreme respect and longing for Noah. But it was also because of this that Noah was puzzled. Why was Xuanai so obsessed with him? If it was a person who had such strong feelings for him, how could he not recognize her? What was going on? Xuanai did not know what to think of Noah's silence, but after a moment of silence, she raised her head and looked straight at Noah, and her eyes flashed with determination. If that is the case, please accept my challenge. Chapter 1661. Challenge. At this moment, all the magic shooters in Fairy Tale were startled. However, Xuanai only had eyes for Noah. She stared at Noah's face and said, If I win, my lord must leave Fairy Tale and joined Sabertooth. Before Noah could respond, Naz stood up. Interesting. Naz's eyes became extremely bright. The space around him began to fill with heat waves, causing the air to distort. Noah, let me fight it out with her. Think carefully before you speak, you idiot. Gray was speechless. If you lose, then Noah will have to join Sabertooth. It doesn't matter, Naz said with conviction. In any case, I won't lose. Wait. No matter what, your opponent is still a Sabertooth sorcerer. Lucy hurriedly said. If you accidentally lose, what will happen to Noah? That's right. Wendy couldn't help but say. At least let Sister Alusha, Sister Mira, or Brother Laxus fight. I'm fine with it, Laxus said expressionlessly. If my brother is poached to another guild, even I won't sit back and do nothing. I'm fine with it too. Myra's expression became serious. Now, no matter who the opponent is, I won't lose. After all, if I lose, the companion I grew up with will leave me. Elusha looked at Xuanai with a sharp gaze. So, I don't mind fighting. Then I'll interfere too. Gajalu grinned. Trying to poach someone in front of me? That's really annoying. Zhu Bian also has no problem, Zhu Bian also said. Julian won't be merciful. Clearly, Xuanai's words had also stimulated the members of Fairy Tale. Most importantly, if this challenge was about whether Noah could stay in the guild, then everyone was absolutely duty-bound. They definitely wouldn't lose. This was the belief in the hearts of the people of Fairy Tale. Noah was naturally very grateful for this, but Xuanai didn't appreciate it. There's only one person I want to challenge. Xuanai stared at Noah without blinking. Please accept my challenge. Noah was silent. After a while, Noah said faintly, Give up. Give up. You can't beat me. No. Xuanai said stubbornly. I won't lose. I don't understand why you're so obsessed with me. Noah finally said what was in his heart. But I have to tell you, if there is a place I should be, it is definitely not the saber-tooth, but the Fairy Tale. Xuanai's pretty face suddenly sank, and she looked at Noah with some sadness in her eyes. She bit her lips and squeezed out these words. Undoubtedly, you said that you're a sorcerer from the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. Noah didn't hear Xuanai's words, and could only frown again. What did you say? Xuanai didn't answer, but raised her head again, looked deeply at Noah, and said, I'll prove to you that no matter what, Fairy Tale is no match for Saber-Tooth. Xuanai's tone became resolute. At that time, you'll naturally understand which guild is the place you should be in. Leaving behind these words, Xuanai turned around and once again took a quiet step. Riding on the beautiful moonlight, she left without looking back, leaving behind a beautiful but somewhat desolate back view for everyone. The street fell into silence. Everyone looked at Xuanai's desolate back view, and at the same time, focused their attention on Noah. In the end, it was Mira who asked softly. Do you know the girl named Xuanai? I don't think I know her, at least I don't think I know her. Noah sighed. So to be more precise, I should say I've seen her somewhere, or there's something I don't know, or even can't remember, right? Hearing this, everyone didn't say anything. Noah took a deep breath and looked at Alusha. I want to investigate two people. One is Xuanai, right? Alusha said directly. Who's the other one? In Mermaid Heel, isn't there a leader with a katana? Noah didn't hold back, and said concisely. The other one is her. I see. Alusha nodded. I'll ask my companions in the guild to investigate. I'll help too. Mira held Noah's hand tightly, but her eyes didn't retract from the direction Xuanai left. I feel like I can't just sit back and watch that kid. Myra's words were exactly what Noah was thinking. Yeah. Noah looked at the direction Xuanai left, and muttered softly. We can't just sit back and watch. After returning to the hotel, Noah told Makarov that Team A and Team B had both passed the preliminaries and were about to participate in the official competition. After reporting the good news, he asked Makarov to help him investigate the two girls. Makarov didn't know why Noah wanted to investigate the two girls, but he didn't ask. He only thought that Noah was concerned about the two girls who were his opponents. Then, he promised that he would immediately obtain the information that Noah wanted. Needless to say, Makarov did it. Relying on his previous connections and his reputation as one of the top 10 St. Magus, Makarov successfully obtained the information that Noah wanted. He even obtained the information of the other opponents in the Great Demon Combat Arts competition and brought it to Noah. Thus, Noah immediately looked at the information of the two girls that he was concerned about. In a room in the hotel, Noah sat on the edge of the bed, and in his hands was a document labeled Mermaid Heel. As soon as he opened the document, Noah saw the person he wanted to investigate. Then, Noah slowly read out the name of the other party. Kagura Mikazuki. Kagura Mikazuki. She belonged to the guild Mermaid Heel, and was publicly recognized as the strongest archmage in the guild. This girl named Kagura wasn't the guild leader of Mermaid Heel, but she was the de facto leader of Mermaid Heel. Not only was her strength extremely powerful, she also had excellent physical and swordsmanship. Even without using magic, she could easily defeat the majority of archmages. Chapter 1662. Noah didn't have any impression of Kagura from Mermaid Heel, so he was sure that he didn't know this girl. However, when Noah saw the name of the person who followed behind Kagura in the Mermaid Heel, who was wearing a black robe and looking at him with ridicule and mockery in the venue, he immediately remembered who that person was. So, she joined Mermaid Heel? Noah looked at the information in his hand, and his heart slightly moved. Could it be that Kagura has some relationship with her, so she acted like that to me? The more he thought about it, the more Noah felt that it was possible. Fortunately, it's not like I don't have any clues. This way, the investigation will be valuable. Of course, although Noah noticed Kagura's words, he didn't care that much. After all, when Kagura looked at Noah at the venue, rather than saying that she was persistent, it would be better to say that she was overly scrutinizing him. Compared to Kagura, Yukino's matter was more important. Thinking of this, Noah directly put down the information marked Mermaid Heel in his hand and pulled out the part marked Sabertooth from the pile of information next to him. After flipping through the information of Sabertooth, Noah directly found Yukino's information. Yukino Agulia. Yukino Agulia. He belonged to the Sabertooth and was a rather famous sorcerer in the Sabertooth. As everyone knew, the guild known as Sabertooth was just a small guild 7 years ago. Later on, they replaced a guild leader and brought in 5 powerful sorcerers. From then on, they soared to the sky and became famous in the kingdom of Fiori. After 7 years, Sabertooth was now the most famous guild in the kingdom. Even excluding the 5 powerful sorcerers who were introduced to the guild and changed the situation of the guild, there was no longer a lack of strong sorcerers in the guild. And Yukino was a famous sorcerer who could be ranked in the top 10 of Sabertooth. According to the information, after the preliminaries of the Great Demon Martial Arts Exhibition, among the Sabertooth team that appeared at the venue, 4 of them were the archmages who had changed the name of Sabertooth. Only Snow was an exception. In order to obtain the qualifications to appear together with Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga, Snow defeated all the other members of the Sabertooth ranking competition, except for the 5 magic shooters who had changed their guild. She stood out from the crowd and came to this stage. At first glance, it seemed that Yukino was quite impressive, but in fact, in the beginning, Yukino wasn't that conspicuous. Noah, who was looking at Yukino's information, frowned in the next second. How many times have you applied to join Sabertooth, only to be rejected? That's right. In the beginning, Yukino wasn't even allowed to join Sabertooth. She tried to join the guild several times but was mercilessly rejected. This was because the guild leader who brought Sabertooth to the peak used absolute terror to control the entire guild. The guild's order and atmosphere were as strict as an army, and he didn't allow any weak members to appear in the guild. Furthermore, if someone did something that even slightly disgraced the name of the strongest guild, even if it was just a single defeat, they would be expelled from the guild by the guild leader. The guild called Sabertooth was just that strict and urgent. Yukino had applied to join Sabertooth at the beginning but was rejected because she was too weak. However, in order to join Sabertooth, Yukino worked hard to hone her magic skills. She went to their door several times before finally gaining recognition and joining Sabertooth. She stood out from all the other members and caught up to the 5 powerful sorcerers who changed the guild. And yet, such a young girl was using a type of magic that surprised Noah. Star magic. Yukino was a star magic sorcerer. Moreover, according to reliable information, this young girl most likely had the keys to the 12 zodiac temples, and more than one. Yukino. Star magic. Noah only felt a trace of inspiration in his mind. This girl, I really do know her. Although he still couldn't remember, whether it was the name Yukino or the trace of inspiration regarding star magic, it all told Noah that he had some connection with this young girl. However, since Noah couldn't remember, it proved that to Noah, it should be something unimportant. However, to Yukino, it should be a very important matter, right? Or else, Yukino wouldn't be so obsessed with Noah. Closing the information in his hands, Noah casually threw it on the bed, got up, and went to the window, looking at the night sky outside. In the silent night sky, there were a lot of stars, giving off an indescribable feeling of peace. Noah looked at the night sky, and soon after, looked in one direction. I remember, Saber-Tooth's hotel is in that direction, right? Saying this, Noah's mouth slowly raised. Let's just treat it as scouting the enemy. After saying this, Noah directly stepped on the windowsill and jumped out of the window, turning into a ray of light, flying towards one of the directions in Coloca's. In Coloca's, there was a hotel named Garden. As the name suggested, it was a hotel that looked like a garden. This inn was where Saber-Tooth stayed during the Great Demonic Battle exhibition. At this moment, in one of the extremely spacious rooms in the hotel, many magic shooters were gathered here. These sorcerers were naturally all from the Saber-Tooth sorcerers. However, at this moment, these magic shooters were lined up neatly as if they were an army. Sting, Rog, Lucifer, Alyaga, and Yukino were at the front of the line. Based on this arrangement, it was easy to tell who had the highest position in the Saber-Tooth. The so-called Saber-Tooth was a guild that determined one's status based on strength. And at the front of the neatly arranged magic shooters, there was a person sitting on a throne-like seat. This person was extremely tall and sturdy, even more exaggerated than Alyaga. He was about 2 meters tall and dressed like a sand monk. A string of prayer beads hung around his neck and the guild's emblem was imprinted on his forehead. His face was extremely ferocious. This person was the guild leader of Saber-Tooth, Germain. Looking at Germain, who was sitting upright in his seat, the members of Saber-Tooth all held their breaths, not daring to even breathe. This was because everyone knew that Germain was in a very bad mood. No. It should be said that he had already entered a state of rage. Second place. A low voice came out of Germain's mouth like a tiger's roar. The famous Saber-Tooth, that has always stood at the top, revered by countless people, looked up to by countless people, feared by countless people, because of a trashy guild that has been at the bottom for 10,000 years, now can only lower themselves to second place? Everyone's palms began to sweat. It had to be said that Germain's voice, filled with anger, was really too scary. Chapter 1663. In fact, Germain was in a very bad mood right now. Saber-Tooth, the guild that was known as the strongest guild and stood at the peak of all the guilds in the kingdom, had actually placed second in the preliminaries before the official competition began. Germain could already imagine how many people would treat Saber-Tooth as a joke when this news spread. Of course, this was only Germain's imagination. To the average citizen, the fact that Saber-Tooth could only place second in the qualifiers was shocking. However, what was even more shocking was the fact that Fairy Tail was the one who took away Saber-Tooth's first place. After all, Fairy Tail had always been at the bottom. This time, they had surpassed all the other guilds in the preliminary round and obtained first place. This would definitely cause a lot of people to be surprised. However, to say that Saber-Tooth was a joke because of this would be overestimating Saber-Tooth too much. It wasn't like Saber-Tooth was the only team that was overtaken. There were so many guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, but all of them had been overtaken. Who would specifically laugh at Saber-Tooth? However, Germain had treated the first place as something that was already in his bag. He thought that if this was taken away from him, others would definitely laugh at Saber-Tooth. It could only be said that Germain had taken Saber-Tooth's first place for granted. As such, when this fact was broken, Germain was so angry. The only guild that can make others look up to is Saber-Tooth. It has always been like this. No one can make Saber-Tooth look up to them, let alone Fairy Tail, who started to fall from grace 7 years ago. Germain's extremely cold gaze swept across everyone below. You should understand what I mean, right? The people who were swept by Germain's gaze couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. In the end, it was Sting who took a step forward and lowered his head. As if he was reporting to his superior, he spoke respectfully. President, please rest assured, we will not lose again. Remember your promise. Germain said expressionlessly. Remember, my Saber-Tooth doesn't need trash who can't win. Yes. Sting could only reply in a low voice. The anger in Germain's heart subsided a lot. Then he turned his gaze to Xuanai. I heard that after the preliminary round ended, you went to look for someone from Fairy Tail. Xuanai's heart suddenly tightened, and she couldn't help but lower her head. Looking at Xuanai, Germain said heartlessly. Tell me, why did you look for someone from that trash guild? Xuan opened her mouth, and finally squeezed out this sentence. I want that person to join. Before Xuan could finish her sentence, she was rudely interrupted by Germain. My saber-tooth does not need someone from that trash guild, Germain said matter-of-factly. You are not allowed to mention this matter again. Clearly, Germain knew very well who the person Xuan was talking about was, and she also knew what Xuan was planning. Thus, once she opened her mouth, Germain completely shut down Xuan's hopes and ideas. Xuan's heart trembled, and she couldn't help but raise her head and speak emotionally. But that person is not weak, he just stayed in a guild that he shouldn't be in. If we can get that person to join Sabertooth, then our Sabertooth will definitely become stronger. When this sentence was said, not only Germain, but everyone else was shocked. Of course, what shocked everyone was not the content of Xuan's words, but the fact that Xuan actually dared to stand up and refute Germain's decision. To put it bluntly, in Sabertooth, Germain was the god. It could be seen from the fact that the guild's order and atmosphere were as strict as an army by Germain. In other words, Germain did not allow anyone to disagree with her. This person sincerely treated Sabertooth as her personal property, and she could create it as she pleased. Under such circumstances, if someone disagreed with Germain, then even if it was not a death wish, it could only be said that they were overestimating their own strength. Thus, Germain's gaze was fixed on Xuan, and she straightened her back like a tiger that got up. So you're saying that someone from a bottom-tier guild can change the entire Sabertooth, just like that? Xuan bit her lips and spoke softly. I just think that person is not weak. Not weak? Germain turned her head and looked at Lucifer. Lucifer, the person that Xuan mentioned, what do you think? From the surface, I can't see his depth. Lucifer pressed down on his hat and answered truthfully. However, that person had killed a Saint Archmage 7 years ago. Even if he hadn't made any progress in the past 7 years, he should still be much more powerful than the average Archmage. That's what my memory says. Have you ever killed one of the 10 great Saint Grand Magi? Germain asked in a non-committal manner. That was only 7 years ago. However, you're right. Even if it was only 7 years ago, being able to kill a great Archmage Saint proves that he's stronger than the average trash. But, our Sabertooth does not need someone who can't keep up with the times. Germain glanced at Xuan. In this year's Great Demon Battle exhibition, that Rock Iron Jula also appeared. If he can defeat Rock Iron Jula, then I can consider letting him join. When she said this, Germain's tone faintly carried a bit of sarcasm. It was clear that Germain did not think that Noah could defeat Jula. It wasn't just Germain. Even the rest of the members of Sabertooth had a look of disbelief on their faces. They all thought that this was an impossible matter. That was natural. Even if Germain was a dictator, even if she was confident, in front of the 5th Saint Archmage, she would not dare to say that she could surpass him. From Germain's point of view, Sabertooth was without a doubt the strongest guild in the game. As a member of this guild, no matter who it was, as long as they failed once, they had to be eliminated. In this great magic combat drill, the only opponent that Germain would allow her members to lose against was the 5th-ranked Grand Magus, Jura. Even the arrogant Germain believed that no one in the guild could defeat Turtledove and allowed them to fail. Needless to say, there was no one in the guild that could defeat Turtledove. Thus, Germain's words were pure mockery. In this regard, Xuan naturally understood. She could only close her eyes, hide all her emotions, and no longer speak. The entire hall was silent. No one noticed. On the roof of the hotel, a person was lying on his back, looking at the night sky and listening to the conversation of the members of Sabertooth. Consider letting me join? Noah indifferently smiled. That smile was truly filled with sarcasm and ridicule. Looks like I have to show a little bit of my ability tomorrow and let these people know that the person they need to look up to is a tiger or a fairy. After saying this, Noah directly got up, turned into a ray of light, and flew into the sky, disappearing into the night sky. Chapter 1664. The next day. When the sky gradually brightened up, many residents of Coloca's had already woken up. These residents who had woken up were all heading to the dome to watch the Great Demon Martial Arts competition. Therefore, early in the morning, the streets of Coloca's were crowded with people. People walked in groups of twos and threes, and as the tide of people surged, they began to move towards the dome. These people who were able to go to the dome to watch the Great Demon Martial Arts competition were very lucky people who bought tickets. After all, although the dome wasn't small, it couldn't hold the entire population of Coloca's, let alone those who came from all over the kingdom and even the mainland. Therefore, the existence of tickets was a matter of course. As for those who couldn't buy tickets, they could watch the live broadcast from other places. For an annual festival like the Great Demon Martial Arts competition, no matter which pub, which hotel, or even the streets, one could watch the live broadcast. These people didn't need to wake up so early, so they continued to lie in their beds and sleep comfortably. However, that didn't mean that they would sleep for long. Bang 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 bang. In the sky above the dome, the sound of firecrackers and fireworks kept echoing in the air. Balloons were released from the venue and floated into the sky. Combined with the firecrackers and fireworks everywhere, the scene couldn't be described as not lively. As the audience entered the venue, the atmosphere of the entire venue gradually heated up. Cheers. It was noisy. Firecrackers and fireworks. All kinds of voices were mixed together, making the entire scene seem like a festival, bustling with noise and excitement. On the rostrum of the venue, there were 3 people sitting side by side. The person in the lead picked up the microphone and gave a passionate speech to the entire venue. Hello everyone. I am Chabati Laura. I would like to extend my greetings to everyone from all over the kingdom. The audience immediately cheered enthusiastically, causing Chapati Lola to cough involuntarily. His tensed-up face was about to relax as he pointed to the side of him. In this year's Great Demon Combat Arts competition, I will be in charge of giving you a live report. The person in charge of commentating is the former member of the Senate. It is said that he is also one of the 10 great Saint Magi who has returned after missing for 7 years, Mr. Yajma, a close friend of Makarov Dolia. Sitting beside Chabati was the counselor who had met Noah once in the council and had a good relationship with Makarov Ajama. Back then, after the commotion at the Paradise Tower, the council was disbanded due to various reasons. Now, the new council was responsible for maintaining the peace of the magic world. After that, Yajma also stepped down from his position as a counselor and opened a restaurant as a chef. Now, Yajma was invited to be the commentator of the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, but he was still wearing a chef's outfit and waving to everyone with a benevolent expression. In addition to me and Mr. Yajma who are in charge of commentating, during the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, we will invite a guest every other day to watch the competitions of the Magic Guide Guild with us. Chabati's voice was still enthusiastic. On the first day, the guest we invited is the cover girl of the Magic Weekly, a top model we are familiar with, Miss Jenny of Blue Pegasus. Following Chabati's words on the rostrum, sitting next to Yajma, a beautiful girl wearing a princess-style dress with long light blonde curly hair tied into a ponytail raised her hand and waved to the audience. The audience immediately burst into cheers that were even more enthusiastic than before, causing Jenny to beam with joy. It seems that Mr. Yajma and Miss Jenny are very famous. Here, I might as well interview the 2 of you for everyone. Chabati understood the atmosphere very well and asked Yajma who was next to him. Mr. Yajma, as a former counselor, in your professional opinion, which guild is more worthy of our expectations in this Great Demon Combat Arts competition? If I have to say, actually, every guild is very worthy of everyone's expectations. Yajma nodded leisurely. But, personally, I am more looking forward to Fairy Tale. Oh, is that so? Chabati said in surprise. But, didn't Fairy Tale always end up at the bottom of the list in the past? You also said that that was in the past. Yajma laughed. In this year's Great Demon Combat exhibition, the main force members who had been missing for 7 years will also appear. Back then, these members were all very powerful archmages. Now that they have returned after 7 years, what kind of performance will they bring? I am very much looking forward to this. So that's how it is. The dark horse is indeed very worthy of people's expectations. Chabati nodded and turned to ask Jenny who was next to Yajma. Then, which guild does Miss Jenny think is likely to win? Of course it's Blue Pegasus. Jenny said without any hesitation. This year we came to win. We will definitely not lose to anyone. Could it be that Miss Jenny doesn't have any expectations for Fairy Tale? Chabati took advantage of the opportunity to ask. It is said that in this year's fairy tale, as Miss Jenny Sr. and also a top model Miss Mira, who everyone likes very much, will also appear? If that's the case, in fact, I am more looking forward to Miss Myra's rumored fiancé. Jenny's face showed a perfect smile. What kind of person is he to be able to capture the most beautiful girl in the modeling world, who's ranked #1 in the Magic Weekly rankings, and who was once the most beautiful girl in the modeling world? Personally, I'm very much looking forward to finding out. Jenny's words made the entire audience begin to shout loudly. Many of them had a look of deep hatred on their faces, and tears even flowed from their eyes. Obviously, Jenny's words resonated with many people. Of course, it was not anticipation, but resentment. After 7 years, Myra's popularity was still so high, it was terrifying. In this regard, Chabati nodded repeatedly. Indeed. Even I can't help but look forward to the man who can go down the aisle with the beloved Miss Mira. What kind of man is he? Let us all wait and see. After saying this, Chabati went into the main topic. Then, this year's Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition is about to begin. The 8 teams that passed the preliminaries will enter the arena. Now, let us announce the rankings of the preliminaries to everyone. After saying this, a huge projection screen flashed in the center of the venue. On the screen, from top to bottom, the rankings of the major guilds were marked. First place, Fairy Tale B Team. Second place, Saber-Tooth. Third place, Raven Tail. Fourth place, Lamia Scale. Fifth place, Blue Pegasus. Sixth place, Mermaid Heel. Seventh place, Cotter Cerberus. Eighth place, Fairy Tale A Team. Looking at this ranking, many people in the audience began to clamor. That Saber-Tooth is only in second place? First place is actually Fairy Tale? It can't be? Suddenly, a commotion began to arise in the audience. Chapter 1665. For a moment, the entire space of the venue was filled with confused and surprised noises from the audience. Moreover, when they saw that Fairy Tale had actually been selected for 2 teams, everyone was even more surprised and rowdy. As if he had already expected this scene, Chabati held the microphone tightly and spoke to Yajima. It seems that the results of Fairy Tale have surprised everyone. Mr. Yajima, what do you think? I can only say that Fairy Tale really didn't let me down. Yajima looked very satisfied. I believe that after this, Fairy Tale will definitely show us her former glory and strength, and let everyone acknowledge her. That's true. Chabati nodded and looked at Jenny. Then what do you think, Miss Jenny? Well, I don't think everyone needs to be so surprised, Jenny said with a smile. It doesn't matter what kind of guild it is. If it can make the Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition more exciting and lively, wouldn't that be great? As expected of Mr. Yajima and Miss Jenny, I can't help but admire their views. Chabati raised his voice. So, I ask the audience to look forward to the performance of the former king, our Fairy Tale. The conversation between the 3 people on the rostrum made the audience in the auditorium stop their noise and began to cheer in agreement. It had to be said that this live reporter called Chabati really had some skills. He had been firmly controlling the atmosphere of the venue and didn't forget to hype it up. No wonder he was selected as the live reporter of the annual Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition. Then, Chabati began to announce. Then, let's invite our contestants to enter. At this moment, under the 8 directions of the auditorium, the passages began to flash with magical light. Dazzling special effects bloomed at the entrances of the 8 passages at the same time, igniting the hearts of the audience. Immediately after, under everyone's gaze, 8 teams slowly walked out from within. Oh no! Loud and clear cheers soared into the sky, shaking the atmosphere. At the entrance of one of the passages, Noah led Mira, Julian, Gajaloo, and Laxus forward on foot. Looking at Noah, who was leading the 4 people forward, many people in the spectator seats began to discuss spiritedly. Is that Miss Myra's fiancé? He doesn't look that good. However, his aura is not bad. Is he the one who led Fairy Tale's team and got first place in the preliminaries? Isn't the person beside him Miss Mira? Looks like it's him. Noya, who could clearly hear the discussions coming from all directions, couldn't help but feel somewhat helpless. Noah, who was waiting for his turn in the contestant area, naturally heard the conversation between the three people on the rostrum. At this moment, even Noah couldn't help but feel sorrowful. Of all the people, why did you mention me? Undoubtedly, one of the 10 saint magicians was also a contestant. In terms of fame and popularity, it should have been him. Of course, in terms of fame and popularity, Mira was not inferior to Jula. If it weren't for the 7-year gap, which gave Mira a chance to appear in front of the public, her fame and popularity would have been much higher than Jula's. Now, because of this fame and popularity, Noah directly became the most conspicuous existence. Everyone pointed their spears at the man who had won over such a famous and popular supermodel. Haha. Mira seemed to be very happy. Her eyes narrowed as she smiled. Noah is really popular. Really? Noah glanced at Mira grumpily. I just don't know who it is because of. Mira smiled and ignored Noah's grumpiness. Looking at the audience who were pointing at Noah, she mischievously hugged Noah's arm and intimately snuggled up to him. Oh! This time, the audience no longer burst into cheers. Instead, it stirred up a burst of cries and howls as if they had been stimulated. All of them were shedding tears of blood. All of them focused their eyes full of anger, jealousy, and resentment on Noah. At this time, Noah really had the urge to turn around and leave. At that moment, Noah sensed an extremely strong gaze being cast on him. There were 4 different gazes. One of them actually came from the armored man from Raven Tail. As early as last night, Noah had read the information of all the other guilds except Fairy Tail. The name flashed in his mind. Alexei. Fairy Tail's Noah Dole. Alexei stared at Noah and whispered in a low voice. I will definitely obtain the Lumen Starlight. Other than Alexei, the other 3 gazes were from 3 different guilds. One was Yukino from Saber Tooth. One was Kagura from Mermaid Heel. The 2 girls had been showing excessive attention to Noah since yesterday. Therefore, Noah wasn't surprised at all by his performance. Instead, it was the last gaze that made Noah a little surprised. That line of sight came from Lamia Scale. The owner of the gaze was Tura. 7 years ago, I could only look at your back and offer you my respect. Tura had a smile full of fighting spirit on her face. For 7 years I have been training. Sir Noah, I look forward to fighting with you. Hearing this, Noah raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled. When the time comes, I won't be merciful. Tura did not say anything and only showed a satisfied expression. The other guilds also more or less showed a certain degree of attention to Noah, but it was not as intense as the 4 above. Under such circumstances, Chapati's voice began to sound. Then, I will now explain the rules of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition. Following Chapati's voice, the ground in the center of the venue suddenly shook. In the next second, the gravel began to be pushed away, and a huge stone tablet rose from the ground. With a boom, it stood in the middle of the venue. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction of the stone tablet. They saw that on the stone tablet, there were 5 different elements. Each line represented the content of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition for an entire day. In other words, the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition would be held for a total of 5 days. The first 4 days of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition are made up of 2 parts. Chapati began to explain. The first part is the competition. The participants of each team can choose a contestant before the start of the competition, and then the content of the competition will be announced. There will be a ranking competition, and according to the ranking, the corresponding points will be awarded. The higher the ranking, the more points will be awarded. The first place will be awarded 10 points, the second place will be awarded 8 points, the third place will be awarded 6 points, the fourth place will be awarded 4 points, the fifth, sixth and seventh place will be awarded 3 points, 2 points and 1 point respectively, and the last place will not be awarded any points, that is, 0 points. The second part is the duel. The contestants are not freely chosen. Instead, the organizers will choose 8 members from each of the 8 teams based on popularity and other factors. They will compete in 4 one-on-one battles. In the end, the winning team will get 10 points. In the case of a draw, both teams will get 5 points. In the case of a loss, the losing team will get 0 points. In the end, at the end of the 5th day, the team with the highest score will be the winning team of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition. Now, please choose your contestants for the first day of the competition. Chapter 1666. Oh! In the spectator seats, people were still cheering enthusiastically, making people feel like their hearts were surging. However, for the 8 teams standing on the field, this was not the time to enjoy the feeling of being the center of attention. The referee, Pumpkin, appeared out of nowhere. He stood in front of the 8 teams and spoke with a humorous voice. Please select one participant from each team to participate in the first day of the competition secret. Is it a secret? Everyone fell into deep thought. Noah turned his head and looked at the stone tablet in the middle of the field. Day 1. Secret plus duel the next day? Plus duel day 3? Plus duel day 4? Plus team duel day 5? After clearly reading the contents of the stone tablet, Noah was still unable to analyze any useful information. The only thing he could be sure of was that this so-called secret was definitely not as simple as an ordinary battle. Otherwise, there would be no need for a duel at the end. The rest of the people were obviously thinking the same thing, and they all began to discuss. Then, it's time for us to send someone. Laxus glanced at Noah. Who should we send? The details of the competition will only be announced after the contestants have been sent out, Mira said. However, from the point of view of the theme of concealment, this time's competition shouldn't have anything to do with a direct confrontation, but rather with concealment, right? Then I won't appear. Gadjaloo dug his ears, looking bored. I'm not good at doing sneaky things. Noah also frowned. If the Gate of Babylon was still around, no matter what kind of competition it was, Noah would be able to deal with it. But now, his authority was being upgraded, and the Gate of Babylon was left in the space between worlds to defend against the invasion of the Shadow. With Noah's current means, he was not very good at things like concealment. If that's the case, why don't we send Zhu Bian? Zhu Bian volunteered and raised his hand. Zhu Bian can change his form and turn into water. Maybe he can play a role in concealment. Hearing this, Noah thought for a moment, then nodded and said, Be careful. Be careful. Let's not talk about the rest of the teams for now, but Sabertooth and Raventail are very likely to target us. You have to be on guard against them. After all, Sabertooth had been thinking about how Fairytale had snatched the first place in the preliminaries, so it was very likely that they would use this opportunity to target Fairytale. As for Raventail, it was needless to say. Fairytale and Raventail were absolute enemies. It was basically certain that Raventail would be the target of Fairytale. So, no matter what, they had to be careful. I understand. Zhu Bian nodded heavily. His eyes were filled with determination. Then, Zhu Bian is up. After saying this, Zhu Bian walked out of the team and attracted everyone's attention. Leo of Lamia Scale looked at Zhu Bian, who walked out of the team. At first he was startled, but then an interesting smile appeared on his face. That girl is quite cute. Okay, if that's the case, I'll go up for this round. Ivan of Blue Pegasus was the same as Leo. He had his eyes on Zhu Bian and spoke without hesitation. Please let me go up for this round. Following the players of Lamia Scale and Blue Pegasus who walked out, the rest of the guilds also sped up their selection. In the end, Mermaid Heel's team sent out a girl who looked a little rustic, while Cotter Cerberus sent out a muscular man who wore a headset and had a pigtail. Then, Fairy Tail A's team also made their selection. That guy, Leo, is actually going on stage so soon? Gray pulled off the tie on his clothes, and his eyes became restless. If that's the case, I'll go up for this round. Be careful, Elusha gave the same advice as Noah. Sabertooth and Raventail will most likely target us. Don't be careless. I know, Gray nodded, then walked out of the team. Thus, only Sabertooth had not sent out a contestant yet. It seems that the people who are going up are all people that I don't remember. Lucifer flicked the hat on his head and smiled very elegantly. Then I'll go get to know them and record their names. Justin, Roger, and Alyaga naturally did not have any objections. After all, none of the people that they cared about had gone up yet. However, Xuanai, who had been silent all this while, suddenly raised his head and spoke. Master Lucifer, please let me go up for this round. All of a sudden, everyone was stunned. I have no problem with that. Lucifer looked deeply at Xuanai and shrugged. But, are you okay with that? Yes. Xuanai nodded expressionlessly. Please let me go up. Justin, Roger, Lucifer, and Alyaga immediately looked at each other. Understood. Lucifer pressed down on his hat. Don't go easy on me. Xuanai nodded, then walked out of the team. In the blink of an eye, all the contestants from the 8 teams had gone up. As for the others, they retreated to the contestant area to watch. Then there are 8 contestants from each team, right? Pumpkin jumped on the spot a few times, looking very lively. Then if there are no problems, we'll get ready to start. Pumpkin. When Pumpkin's voice fell, a strange phenomenon happened. Clang. A burst of light suddenly bloomed in every corner of the venue. The flashes of light turned into images and eventually turned into buildings, gradually occupying the entire venue. It didn't take long for a city to appear in the venue. The contestants were all startled. Soon after, they were separated by the flashing buildings and scattered to every corner of the town. That was not the end. After the contestants were distributed to the various corners of the town, the missing figures began to appear one after another on the streets of the town. Those were all thought bodies of the 8 contestants. Therefore, in the blink of an eye, every street of the town was filled with thoughts of the contestants, and it became crowded. In the next second, in the sky above the town, crystal screens also flashed, broadcasting the current situation of every contestant in the town. Now, let's begin the explanation of the rules. Chapati picked up the microphone and let his voice spread to the entire venue. As you can see, the so-called secret is to let the contestants of each team play hide-and-seek in the town. They are the ones chasing each other, and the ones being chased are also the ones being chased. In the process of the competition, there are no restrictions on methods and magic. As long as you find your opponent and attack, regardless of whether it causes damage or not, if you hit, you will gain 1 point. If you are hit, you will lose 1 point. Chapati reminded. At the same time, please note that the town is filled with your replicas. Once you hit a replica, you will lose 1 point. Finally, according to your points, we will determine the ranking, Chapati announced loudly. The competition time is 30 minutes. Now, the first day of the Great Demon Combat Arts Competition, the secret competition, begins. Chapter 1667. Dang! Following the loud ringing of the bell, the audience from all over the kingdom erupted in enthusiastic cheers as they watched the competition through the projection screen above the venue. In a corner of the audience, a group of people were shouting at the top of their lungs. Come on! Come on! Fairy tale! Leading a group of fairy tale magic shooters, Makarov stood directly on the edge of the audience's wall. He was shouting so loudly that the veins on his temples were popping out, making people worry that he would suddenly be out of breath later. However, under the leadership of Makarov, the group of fairy tale magic shooters yelled tirelessly, cheering for Gray and Julian. In the contestant area, the 2 teams belonging to Fairy Tale were also watching the projection screen, looking forward to the results of the competition. Perhaps because of Noah and Alusha's instructions, Gray and Julian didn't appear too conspicuous after learning the rules. Instead, they immediately rushed into the large crowd of projections on the street, blended into the crowd, and completely disappeared. Not only Gray and Julian, but the contestants of the other teams also understood tacitly and blended into the crowd, using their projections to hide their whereabouts. This was the true meaning of concealment. The members of each team needed to take advantage of the terrain and the crowd to hide their whereabouts, and at the same time, they needed to find their opponents in the vast crowd and give them the right blow. If they hit the real body, they would gain points. If they were hit, their points would be deducted. And if they hit the clones, their points would also be deducted. In the end, the rankings of the 8 teams would be determined based on the points obtained. In other words, the contestants of each team must be very cautious in this competition. They must not only avoid losing points, but also find ways to score points. It's really very difficult. Chapati, who was in charge of the live report, reported dutifully. We can see that the contestants of each team have already blended into the crowd of clones, completely hiding their whereabouts. They are moving and observing in the dark, carefully moving their positions while looking for the contestants of the other teams. As expected of a team that can enter the top 8, every magic shooter is very clear about what they should do. Yajima praised. However, time is also limited. Once the 30 minutes time limit is up, the results will be out. For this reason, They must find ways to score points. Whether they can remain calm in this situation and not become anxious because of the passage of time, and then reveal their flaws, this is where the contestants will be tested. Our Evan Kuhn won't reveal any flaws so easily. Jenny smiled. Please look forward to his performance. While the three people on the rostrum were passionately discussing the situation, the sharp-eyed Chapati suddenly noticed the situation on one of the projection screens. His eyes abruptly widened as he excitedly yelled out. That's Snow Agulya from Saber-Tooth. The magic shooter of the most powerful guild has finally started to move. Chapati's words attracted everyone's attention to the projection screen that was broadcasting Snow Agulya. Following that, everyone began to clamor. There was no other reason. The girl named Snow Agulya didn't hide at all. Instead, she stood openly on the top of the bell tower in the center of the town, and her snow-white coat fluttered in the howling wind. She didn't hide. Chapati shouted in disbelief and excitement. Is this the calmness of the most powerful guild? Everyone in the audience burst into astonishing cheers. In the contestant area, Noah also gazed at this scene, and his eyes flickered. Hugh dash. A gust of wind blew by, bringing coldness that was enough to deprive people of their body temperature into this space. Standing on the top of the bell tower, Snow Agulya looked down and closed her eyes after a while. At this moment, the memories that were firmly engraved in Snow Agulya's mind began to replay. For Snow Agulya, it was a memory from 7 years ago. The location of the memory was Magnolia. However, it was only a small alley in Magnolia. At that time, Snow Agulya was just a vagrant. She didn't have anyone she could rely on. She was only 11 years old. She was wearing dirty clothes that hadn't been washed for God knows how many days. Her life was a situation where she couldn't guarantee her survival and could starve to death at any time. Her family had already passed away when she was younger. Her only home was burned down in a disastrous fire. She had no family and no home to return to. In order to survive, Snow Agulya could only sneak into the bustling city and try to pick up some leftovers that the rich people didn't want. Of course, no one would like a child like her. Not to mention, Snow Agulya didn't have anything at that time. Because she was too young and dirty, she wasn't as beautiful and delicate as she was now. It was predictable that she would be bullied. It was at that time that Snow Agulya met him in the alley. He suddenly arrived without any warning, and in an effortless manner, he took care of the group of hooligans who bullied Xuanai in a few moves. He wiped the dirty Xuanai's tender face without any disdain, and gently stroked Xuanai's head. That was the only warmth that Snow Agulya had encountered in the world after her family was destroyed. From then on, Snow Agulya was destined to never forget this person. She still remembered that at that time, the young Snow Agulya asked that person so innocently, "Why are those bad people so afraid of you, sir?" The man seemed to be surprised by Snow Agulya's question, but he continued to gently stroke Snow Agulya's head while saying so. "They are afraid of me because I am a sorcerer." Sorcerer. Snow Agulya knew this term, because it was a name for a certain group of people who could use magic. For a child, magic was no doubt a mystery that was yearned for. Therefore, at that time, the man who saved Snow Agulya and gave her warmth, and was also a sorcerer, touched Snow Agulya's heart. "Sir, are you a sorcerer?" "That's right, and you are a sorcerer from the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom." The strongest guild. Sorcerer. Guild. It was a place where many sorcerers gathered. In other words, it was a place that every child who yearned for magic yearned for. The man was not only a sorcerer, but also a member of the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. Because of this, the man had the qualifications to be regarded as an idol by the children. Snow Agulya was no exception. With all these factors added together, the man's image in Snow Agulya's heart became extremely high. After that, the man left Snow Agulya a large sum of money that was unimaginable to Snow Agulya at that time, and a key. A Star Soul key. Use it well. I hope that the next time we meet, you will have become a great sorcerer. After leaving this sentence, the man left. However, in Snow Agulya's heart, the man stayed forever and could never be forgotten. From then on, Snow Agulya decided, "In the future, I want to join the strongest guild and become a sorcerer in the strongest guild." In order to achieve this wish, Snow Agulya trained hard and found out the name of the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. That was the Saber-Tooth. Thus, Snow Agulya joined this guild. However, after joining this guild, Snow Agulya found out that her wish was so laughable. There was no man in that guild that Snow Agulya yearned for. Later on, Snow Agulya found out that the man's guild was not the Saber-Tooth, but another guild that was once the strongest. However, that guild had declined and was no longer the strongest guild. And the man she yearned for had long been destroyed by the Black Dragon on Sirius Island, who destroyed a country in Silent Revelation. At that time, Snow Agulya fainted. After waking up, Snow Agulya cried again. The strongest guild or whatever, it doesn't matter at all. I just want to follow in your footsteps and come to you to tell you that I have become a great sorcerer. This was the real thought in Snow Agulya's heart. Since then, Snow Agulya seemed to have lost the meaning of life. Every day, in order to not be kicked out of the guild, she mechanically trained her strength and lived like a walking corpse. Until 3 months ago, when the Sirius Island that was supposed to be destroyed reappeared and the main members of the Sirius Island returned, Snow Agulya's heart came back to life. I am already a great sorcerer. At the top of the bell tower, Snow Agulya slowly opened her eyes as if she could see the back of that person. Her eyes bloomed with a strong will. Let me prove it here. After saying this, Snow Agulya raised a golden key high in her hand. Chapter 1668. Just as Xuan raised the golden key high up, Lucy, who saw this scene from the projection, couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Isn't that the key to the 12 ecliptic gates? Star Elven key? Elusha stared at Xuan on the projection screen and spoke in a low voice. Is that Xuan also a Star Elven archmage? Noah, who also saw this scene, narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, there is the key to the 12 ecliptic gates. Under everyone's gaze, Xuan entire body flickered with starlight like magic. The Star Elven key that was raised high up blossomed with radiance. Open. Libra Constellation Gate Libra. From the radiance blossoming from the Star Elven key, a magic array suddenly revolved and appeared above the entire clock tower. Immediately, from the magic array, a young girl slowly emerged. It was a young girl wearing a Chong Sam, with a tray of Libra hanging in each of her hands. This young girl was precisely the Star Elven of the Libra constellation of the 12 ecliptic gates Libra. Looking at the young girl who appeared from the magic array, Xuan softly spoke. Go, Libra. Libra nodded without any hesitation, lowering the 2 Libra trays in her hands. A burst of astonishing magic suddenly erupted from Libra's body, transforming into formless ripples that reverberated in all directions. Wherever the formless ripples passed, the space actually became heavy. Immediately after, the contestants mixed in the sea of people were all unprepared and suddenly felt their bodies become heavy, uncontrollably smashing onto the ground, including Gray and Julian. This is... Gray's expression slightly changed. Gravity? Ugh. Julian seemed to be ruthlessly pressed down by something heavy, revealing an uncomfortable expression. Being pressed down by gravity. Libra's magic was the magic that manipulated gravity. At this moment, under the pressure of the suddenly extremely heavy gravity, the members of the other 7 teams were all firmly pressed to the ground, revealing uncomfortable expressions. However, it was only suppressed by gravity at most, and could not be considered an attack. Therefore, Xuan score did not increase at all. However, this was not Xuan goal. The reason why Xuan had summoned Libra and had him change the gravity was to find the participants of the various teams that had mixed in with the body of longing. This was because the body of yearning would not be affected by gravity and would still stand in place. As for the contestants, they would definitely be affected by gravity. At this very moment, Snow was relying on her astonishing magic power to support Libra's magic, allowing Libra's magic range to extend to the entire town, suppressing everyone. Then, Xuan took out another key. It was also a golden key. In the contestant area, Lucy couldn't help but cover her mouth. There is a second one? The second key. Elusha was also surprised. Could it be that she can double open the door? This question was answered in the next moment. Activate. Xuan raised the second star essence key high up in the air. The gate of Pisces Biscuit. The star-like radiance once again flickered from the star essence key. Following the rotation of the magic array, 2 huge black shadows scuttled out from the magic array. The black shadows were two fishes. The two fishes were extremely huge, at least tens of meters long. They looked like eels, but they looked like dragons as they roamed in space. Biscuit! Xuanai directly ordered. Attack! The two fishes that were roaming in space suddenly separated, as though they were swimming in invisible water. They drew two perfect parabolas as they flew to the top of two corners of the town. Then, with a sudden burst, they suddenly descended. Bang! The two huge fishes fiercely crashed into the ground, stirring up a burst of sand and dust. Ah! Amidst the sand and dust, the two figures let out sorrowful cries as they were blown away by the burst of wind. They flew all the way and crashed into the walls of two buildings. This was not the end. After sending the two contestants flying, the two giant fishes named Biscuit once again shot towards the horizon. With an extremely nimble twist of their bodies, they swam in two different directions. Like meteorites falling from the sky, they heavily smashed down. Bang! Another rumbling sound rang out, and the ground cracked from the impact. An astonishing amount of sand and dust once again shook the ground, sending the two figures in the center flying, causing the two participants to let out miserable cries. For a moment, the entire town seemed to have turned into a playground for two huge fishes. The two fishes kept colliding with each other, setting off waves of impact and raising bursts of sand and dust. The ground trembled, and the buildings began to shake. The star spirit named Biscuit was like a dragon roaming in the sea, moving its body within the city that continuously stirred up sand and dust. Under Xuanai's command, it continuously attacked. Firmly suppressed by Libra's gravity, the group of contestants were completely unable to resist. They could only continuously receive heavy impacts, and amidst waves of mournful cries, they were sent flying one after another. Oh! The audience burst into cheers of amazement. That's amazing! Chabadi shouted into the microphone. Under the attack of contestant Yukino, the other contestants can't resist at all. They can only passively take the attacks. Yukino's points are constantly increasing. What an astonishing amount of magic power! Ajima exclaimed with a serious expression. Not only can she open 2 of the 12 zodiac gates at the same time, but she can also make gravity cover the entire town. With such a large area of effect magic, it is reasonable to say that the power should be severely dispersed, but contestant Xuanai is still able to firmly suppress the other contestants, making them unable to resist at all. This level of magic, no matter which guild, is enough to become an S-rank magic shooter. In order to pursue the figure she longed for, after 7 years of hard training, the girl who had problems with food and clothing had completely transformed, possessing astonishing strength. Under such circumstances, even Gray and Julian could only put up some resistance. After dodging a few of Biscay's attacks, they were still hit repeatedly. As a result, in the entire battle, except for Yukino, the points of the other contestants were constantly decreasing. Gray, Brother Gray. Naz, Elisha, Lucy, and Wendy all exclaimed. Julian. In the audience, Makarov and the others also couldn't help but exclaim. The other contestants and members of the other guilds looked at the one-sided situation, and all of them had ugly expressions. The only exception was the sorcerer from Saber-Tooth. Well done, Yukino. Sting laughed loudly. That's it. Amazing magic power. No wonder she can defeat all the other members of the guild except for the 5 of us. The corner of Lucius's mouth slowly rose. This level of strength is already not weaker than us. That's what my memory tells me. I finally understand why Miss personally chose her. Olyaga snorted softly. Really, why didn't we hear anything about such a powerful member before? That wasn't strange. After learning that Noah had disappeared on Celestial Wolf Island, Yukino just dealt with the guild like a walking corpse while mechanically training. Such a method led to 2 results. 1. Yukino's handling made this girl not very conspicuous in the guild. 2. The continuous mechanical training made this girl who was immersed in sorrow unknowingly hone a magic power that shocked even herself. Therefore, after learning that Noah had survived and was rejuvenated, Yukino shocked the entire guild and defeated all the other members except Sting, Rog, Lucius, Olyaga, and Maniba in one fell swoop. And such strength was only honed because of one person. Looking at the one-sided situation on the projection screen, Noah stared closely at Yukino, who was holding 2 keys high, her body fluctuating with amazing magic power, and fell into silence. Chapter 1669.
Dang 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 dang.
When the bell that signified the end of the match rang, Chapati's voice echoed throughout the entire venue. Time's up. The match is over. A crystal screen flashed in mid-air, showing everyone the points that each team obtained in this match. Saber-tooth, 77p. Lamia scale, -4p. Raven tail, -6p. Fairy Tail A team, Fairy Tail A, -7p. Fairy Tail B team, Fairy Tail B, -9p. Blue Pegasus, -14p. Mermaid heel, -17p. Cotter Cerberus, -20p. Looking at the score, the audience burst into cheers. As for the other guilds, they were all silent. On the score table, other than Saber-tooth, the other guilds had negative points. Moreover, these negative points added up to -77 points, which offset the points that Xuan'ai had obtained. What did this mean? It meant that Xuan'ai had obtained all the points from the other teams. In the process, Xuan'ai did not hit the duplicates once, nor did she get hit once. Her points did not decrease at all. This match was completely Xuan'ai's specialty. Without a doubt, in this match, Xuan'ai has obtained an overwhelming victory. Chapati reported to the audience. According to this ranking, the 8 teams have also obtained the corresponding points, and the guild rankings have been changed. The current rankings are as follows. First place, Saber-tooth, 10p. Second place, Lamia scale, 8p. Third place, Raven tail, 6p. Fourth place, Fairy Tail A team, 4p. Fifth place, Fairy Tail B team, 3p. Sixth place, Blue Pegasus, 2p. Seventh place, Mermaid heel, 1p. Eighth place, Cotter Cerberus, 0p. After the first match, our Saber-tooth has finally obtained the first place, followed by Lamia scale. The secret tournament has finally ended. Under Chapati's report, the town in the venue gradually disappeared like a phantom. In the town, the 8 contestants were all teleported out. Moreover, the moment they appeared, 7 of the contestants were kneeling on the ground, constantly gasping for breath. Their bodies were either covered in dust or full of wounds, looking very pathetic. Only Xuan'ai, who was completely unharmed, stood in the cold wind, looking delicate and beautiful.
That fellow.
Gray raised his head and stared at Xuan'ai with an ugly expression.
Zhu Bian.
Since he did not have the strength to retaliate, Zhu Bian bit his lips. Who exactly is that Xuan'ai? I have never heard of her before. Liu's face was also somewhat ugly. Of course, Gray, Zhu Bian and Liu were still considered good. At least they dodged the attacks of the Pisces constellation star spirits a few times, and did not let their points fall too far behind. But, the 3 of them did not have the opportunity to obtain points under the dual suppression of Pisces constellation and Libra constellation. In the end, in the entire competition, other than Xuan'ai, the rest did not obtain any points, and could only passively dodge and endure Xuan'ai's attacks, allowing Xuan'ai to continuously obtain points. Right now, other than Xuan'ai, the rest of the contestants were only ranked based on their ability to resist and dodge. So, everyone's face was extremely ugly. To this, Xuan'ai only silently raised her head, and looked in one direction. In the next moment, the 2 gazes met in mid-air. Noah looked at Xuan'ai, who was staring at him, and saw the determination in her eyes, but did not say anything. Noah's intuition told him. Even if it was only at this time, he must definitely pay attention to this girl, and take in this girl's performance in his eyes. Otherwise, it would definitely shatter the heart of this girl who seemed strong, but was actually very fragile, and would never be able to recover. On the side, Mira tightly hugged Noah's arm and said softly,
That child is really strong.
Xuan'ai was indeed very strong. As a star spirit archmage, Lucy could not be compared to Xuan'ai at all. Even the original angel could not compare to the current Xuan'ai. Just like what Yajima said. This girl, no matter which guild she was in, had the ability to become an S-rank archmage. If she continued to train, in another 1 or 2 years, it would not be difficult to surpass the current Alusha and Mira, right?
Xuan'ai Agulia.
Noah muttered to himself.
Very good. I will remember you.
Not knowing if it was because she heard Noah's voice, Xuan'ai's eyes rippled a little.
She retracted her gaze and returned to the contestant area of Sabertooth amidst the cheers of the audience. The rest of the contestants also stood up and returned to the contestant area where their teams were located.
I'm very sorry.
Julian lowered his head and did not even dare to look at the crowd. Julian has embarrassed you all.
Don't mind it.
Gadjaloo glanced at Julian and said in a seemingly unconcerned manner.
It's not that you are too weak, but that Star Spirit Archmage is stronger than we thought.
If the other 4 people are as strong as that Star Spirit Archmage, then there are not many people on our side who can fight against them.
Laxus folded his arms and closed his eyes. Although, I don't think that in the end, we will lose.
That's right. Mira stretched out her hand and gently hugged Julian.
You have worked very hard. It's only the first day. Take it slow.
Yes. Julian looked at Noah dejectedly.
I'm sorry, Sir Noah. It's just a competition. You didn't lose face. At least we are still in the 5th place. Elusha is also in the 4th place.
The gap between us and the 1st place is not that big.
We just have to catch up later.
Noah shook his head.
Don't forget, there will be a duel later. The organizer will choose the contestants for the duel. It's not impossible for them to choose you again. So you should rest well. If you are chosen, you just have to win it back. Julian relaxed a little and nodded heavily. Under Myra's care, he sat down and began to rest. At this time, Chapati also began to announce on the rostrum. The first day of the Great Demon Fighting Drill has come to an end. Next, let's enter the exciting duel.
Chapati took up a form.
Just now, the organizer handed over the duel list to me. There will be a total of 4 duels. Each duel will be between 2 teams of 2 guilds. I will now announce the first duel.
Speaking of this, Chapati suddenly widely opened his eyes as he raised his voice abruptly.
For the first duel, the first to appear is actually one of the 10 great Saint Magi of Lamia Scale, Turari Kiss. For a moment, there was a trace of silence in the audience. Then there was a burst of cheers. Me. Tura raised her head in surprise. However, in the next moment, Chapati's announcement made Tura's eyes light up. The contestant is Fairy Tale B. Noah Doria.
Noah's eyes began to flicker with an intimidating light.
However, personally speaking, I'm also very curious. After 7 years, who's stronger between Mr. Tura and that big brother? This sentence made Tura turn around and smile. I'm also very curious. That's why I participated in the Great Demon Battle exhibition. After leaving this sentence, Tura walked out of the contestant area and walked towards the venue. On the other side, in the contestant area of Fairy Tale B, everyone gathered around Noah. You're going up against that rock iron Dura right from the start? Raxus asked Noah, which was a rare sight. How is it? Can you deal with it?
Who knows? Noah shrugged.
For the time being I can still fight. Don't lose. Gadjaloo curled his lips. If you can get 10 points, then you can catch up.
Noah won't have a problem.
Mira showed a gentle smile and adjusted Noah's collar. Her eyes were fixed on Noah's face. I believe that even if your opponent is one of the top 10 Saint Magi, you won't lose. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but smile. He stretched out his hand and gently touched Myra's beautiful face. Since my dear wife has said so, then I can't let you down. After saying this, Noah stood up and slowly walked forward. Then, I'll be back. Be careful on the road.
Mira waved her hand at him like a wife sending her husband off.
Come back quickly.
Noah raised his hand and casually waved.
Then, he walked out of the contestant area and onto the stage. Seeing Noah and Tura walking into the arena, the audience cheered and burned with enthusiasm. Meanwhile, in the contestant area of Sabertooth, a group of Sabertooth magic shooters were also looking at Noah and Turtledove into the arena with mocking smiles on their faces. I didn't expect that person to actually face Tura of the top 10 Saint Magi, Sting said jokingly. Yesterday, the president said that if that man can beat Tura, then he will be allowed to join the guild, right? That kind of thing, is it possible? Alyaga said sarcastically. Even our president didn't ask us to beat Tura. It would be strange if someone from a guild that was at the bottom could do it. After all, the 10 great saint magicians are also divided into strong and weak. No matter what, Tura is ranked 5th among the 10 great saint magicians.
If the top 4 of the 10 great saint magicians are truly monsters, then the 5th one is truly the strongest high mage among humans.
Lucius nodded. That's what my memory tells me. Well, let's look forward to it for the time being.
Sting glanced at Xuanai and said this with a smile.
No matter what, Xuanai has a deep relationship with that man. For him, she can even stand up against the president. At least, we should take a good look at his performance for Xuanai's sake.
Xuanai didn't pay any attention to Sting's teasing. She only silently gazed at Noah, who was gradually walking into the arena.
Perhaps, even Xuanai herself didn't notice. Her heartbeat had already begun to accelerate. In the arena, the cheers were still incessant, shaking the air and making people's hearts surge. Of course, almost all of those cheers were directed at Tura. Under such circumstances, Noah and Turtledove were facing each other with a distance between them. I've always wanted to fight with you. The smile on Tura's face didn't disappear. He was obviously in a good mood. I'm really happy to be able to fight with you so quickly.
I also feel very honored to be able to be looked forward to by the 5th Archmage of the 10 Saint Magi, Noah said indifferently.
But, sorry, I don't intend to give you the victory. So if you want to beat me, you'd better use your full strength from the beginning. Noah's shameless boasting made the audience in the arena start to boo. However, Tura's performance made the audience feel extremely stunned. Of course. Tura stopped smiling, and his eyes became unprecedentedly serious. I don't have the confidence to do anything to you without using my full strength. Tura's words caused a commotion in the audience, but it also led the atmosphere to a climax. Not giving in to each other. The will to never admit defeat. Which side will win in the end? Chabati solemnly announced. The first duel of the Great Demon Wars, Fairy Tale B Team, Noah Doria vs Lamia Scale, Tura Rhesus. Begin. Chapter 1671. Pa! Just as the announcement of the start of the duel was made, Tura suddenly clapped his hands together like a monk. Wang! Along with a trembling sound, an incomparably powerful mana burst out from Tura's body like a storm. His monk robe fluttered as a raging gale blew in all directions. Under the sweeping of the magic wind, the sand on the ground began to rise, mixing with the wind. In an instant, it turned into a sandstorm vortex with Jula as the center, constantly rotating. Thus, half of the entire venue was quickly enveloped by the whirlpool of sandstorm, causing the atmosphere to become chaotic. Just by relying on pure mana, Tura was able to create such a phenomenon. That scene caused the cheers of the audience to suddenly stop. That was because everyone in the audience had already subconsciously held their breaths and froze on the spot due to the powerful mana that was surging towards them. It wasn't just the audience. Even the powerful high mages from the various large guilds were shocked by the shockwave of mana. Each and every one of them widened their eyes. Under such circumstances, Tura, who was at the center of the whirlpool of sandstorm, didn't intend to stop. His body tensed up as veins bulged on his rock-like face as he let out a deep roar. Roar! 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 The roar echoed clearly in the air, causing the mana from Tura's body to become even more astonishing. It was like a typhoon, constantly sweeping through the area. The robe of Noah, who was standing on the opposite side, was violently undulating from the violent sandstorm that was sweeping towards him. However, Noah didn't seem to be affected in the slightest. He looked at Tura, who was at the center of the storm, and slowly narrowed his eyes. In this world, Noah had already seen Tura's mana as early as 7 years ago. It was when the Alliance army was carrying out a mission to annihilate the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. At that time, Noah and Kara had a brief confrontation when they first met. Of course, at that time, Noah and Tura didn't really fight. Instead, they both released their mana and engaged in a pure contest of mana. Compared to that time, Tura's mana had increased by more than 1 level after 7 years. At the very least, in Noah's memories, the level of magic power that Jura was bursting with was only weaker than the 2 existences in this world. One was Akuno Loya. The other was Jerf. In addition to the 2 existences above, Tura's mana had already surpassed Makarov, Lax's, and even Kilda's. However, Tura wasn't squandering his mana to prove anything.
Noah understood almost immediately. Tura intended to continue the magic contest during the Alliance Army's time. Understanding this, Noah was helpless, and he muttered in amusement. "You chose the wrong method, Tura." As soon as his voice fell, a very slight tremor shook from Noah's body. It was the sound of an invisible mana fluctuation that began to sweep up around the ground where Noah was standing, causing the space to tremble. At this moment, the entire space suddenly stagnated as if it had solidified. The sandstorm that had enveloped half of the venue and was constantly spinning like a vortex also stopped. Bang! In the next second, along with an explosive sound, a wave of extremely terrifying magic power exploded from Noah's body, turning into a phosphorescence that was like flames that slowly burned. What? Tura was shocked. However, before Tura could react, the mana aura that soared from Noah's body suddenly exploded, turning into a mana light beam that soared into the sky. In an instant, it scattered the clouds and made the entire sky chaotic. Rumble! The ground began to shake without any reason. Kacha! With a pillar of light as the center, a series of cracks slowly spread out in the venue amidst a bone-chilling cracking sound, causing grains of sand and gravel to begin to float into the air. Noah just raised his head and looked at Tura, his dark eyes flashing with a sharp light. All of a sudden, the mana light pillar that rose from Noah's body expanded bit by bit, stirring up a terrifying hurricane that directly blew away the sandstorm that enveloped half of the venue, forming a shockwave in the form of a ring. At this moment, the entire venue was shaking as if it had encountered an earthquake, shaking desperately. Woo 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 woo! In the spectator stands, the spectators from all over the kingdom let out cries of surprise. Under the effect of the earthquake-like shaking ground, they all fell to the ground with cries of agony. As for the magic shooters from the various large guilds, they were also trying their best to stabilize their bodies under the influence of the shaking ground. At the same time, they looked at the terrifying mana light beam that soared into the sky from the center of the venue with a horrified expression on their faces. Impossible! Justin's face was full of horror. Impossible! Alyaga was also horrified. Impossible! Lucius could no longer maintain his elegance, and his face was covered with drops of sweat. As for Xuanai, her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with uncontrollable shock. Rumble! Under everyone's horrified expressions, the mana that soared from Noah's body continued to wreak havoc, causing the entire bird dome to shake and let out mournful cries. All of a sudden, the entire venue seemed to have fallen into a scene of disaster, causing the ground to crack and the air to tremble non-stop. One by one, the audience let out miserable cries and laments, falling into a daze and chaos. Even the bystanders were in such a state, let alone Tura, who was directly facing such a terrifying mana. She was in the center of the shockwaves caused by the mana light beam that soared into the sky. She used both her hands to block in front of her, but her body was constantly shaken back. Her feet plowed 2 deep marks on the ground, and all the pores on her body had already exploded. What a terrifying mana! Cold sweat trickled down Tura's rock-like face. Not only did Noah's mana not show any signs of calming down, but it was also expanding bit by bit, causing the pillar of mana soaring into the sky to expand. Seeing this, Turtledove inwardly shouted, "Stop it! No, I can't let this continue." Thinking of this, Tura's mana instantly soared, and she suddenly raised one of her feet, then abruptly stomped down. Bright move, Fuyu. In the next instant, the entire ground exploded. Boom! In the deafening sound, a terrifying shockwave burst out from the ground like an erupting volcano, turning into another light beam. It exploded the ground, shook the air, and covered Noah in it as it soared into the sky. At this time, the mana that soared into the sky finally calmed down, and the ground stopped shaking. However, this phenomenon not only did not let Tura relax, but her pair of eyes suddenly shrank. In the center of the erupting light beam, a figure violently rushed out, swept across the air, and rushed in front of Tura. Oh no! Tura seemed to have thought of something that could not be ignored, and couldn't help but abruptly change her expression. At this time, a powerful kick suddenly landed on Tura's chest. Bang! The muffled sound was extremely clear. Goo! Pained groans could be heard as well. Tura was directly kicked into the air, and her body turned into an arrow leaving the bowstring. Like a kite with a broken string, she flew out upside down and heavily hit the wall below the auditorium. Severe pain attacked her from the front and the back at the same time, making Tura feel that all the air in her lungs had been squeezed out in an instant.
Chapter 1672.
Cough, cough, cough. While coughing, Jula supported herself with one hand on the wall and the other on her knees.
She stood up awkwardly and looked forward. A drop of sweat dripped down from her chin and wet the ground. In the auditorium, the audience got up from the ground with lingering fear. They looked at Noah in the venue in shock. Their faces were all filled with shock. Apart from the sorcerers, the audience, who were ordinary people, could not understand what had just happened. The audience only knew that as soon as the competition started, the entire venue was shaken by Noah, and they were all affected. By the time the earthquake stopped, Jura was already in such a sorry state. This situation made the audience unable to react in time. On the rostrum, Chapati, Yajima, and Jenny all had stiff expressions. After a while, Chabati was the first to react. He picked up the microphone and spoke with a trembling voice. Hard to believe. That Dula is actually at a disadvantage. This voice awakened everyone who was standing there in a daze. The entire place fell silent. In the next moment, astonishing cheers erupted from the audience, causing the entire venue to shake. Although they couldn't understand what had happened, there was one thing that everyone understood. That was, as one of the 10 great Saint Magi, Jura had met a true opponent at this very moment. This match was destined to be more exciting than anyone had imagined. As long as the audience understood this point, it was enough. Therefore, all the spectators had forgotten their contempt for Noah earlier and broke out into cheers. This time, the cheers were not only for Dula, but also for Noah. Well done. Go, Noah. Defeat Dula. Defeat him. Not to mention the audience, even the magic shooters of Fairy Tale cheered excitedly. On the other hand, the contestants from the other guilds were shocked when they saw Turtledove's miserable state. How is this possible? Leo murmured in disbelief. 7 years have passed, and Mr. Abdullah still can't do anything to that person? So powerful. Shirley's mouth was also slightly agape. No wonder Mr. Dura treated that big brother as an opponent. That guy. Sting couldn't help but gulp. So it's that strong? Noah Dole. Even Logue, who had been silent all this time, had a solemn expression on his face. Sweat dripped down his forehead. Was the Phantom Lord destroyed by such a man? That's too shocking. Lucifer covered his face with his hat, so that no one could see his expression. It seems like that man's strength has exceeded our expectations. Hey. Alyaga clenched his fists, his face twitching. That guy, don't tell me he can really defeat Abdullah? No one answered Alyaga's question. Everyone fell silent as they recalled the terrifying magic power just now. Only Xuanai's eyes flashed with an extremely bright light. She was both excited and expectant as she spoke softly. If Lord Noah can really defeat Jura, Lucian muttered. Thinking of this, Yukino's heart was filled with expectation. Sure enough, Noah-sama is the strongest high mage. Aside from Yukino, there was another person in the contestant area who was looking forward to Noah. Noah Duria, the man who saved my brother and killed Jalal. Kagura looked expectantly at Noah, who was standing in the middle of the hall. She tightened her grip on the tachi in her hand. I really want to fight him. Noah didn't seem to notice anything amidst the cheers and shock of the entire city. He stared at the panting Tura and said after a long while, That's right. After a while he said, This doesn't seem like the kind of mistake you would make, Abdullah. Since the start of the match, Abdullah had made 2 mistakes. 1. He intended to use pure magic power to start the match with Noah. 2. He used pure elemental magic to attack Noah. There was no need to explain the first mistake. It was obvious how irrational it would be to compete with Noah, who had unlimited mana, in terms of mana. However, this mistake was pardonable. After all, Abdullah didn't know the extent of Noah's magic power. He couldn't be blamed for making such a mistake. However, the second mistake was somewhat inexcusable. That's true. Abdullah bitterly smiled. I forgot that magic is ineffective against you and used pure elemental magic to attack you. This is a mistake I shouldn't have made. During the time of the Alliance,
Noah had already shown that magic was ineffective against him. Thus, Abdullah also knew that Noah had such an ability. But in such a situation, Abdullah still made this mistake. This was a mistake he shouldn't have made. In order to defeat me, you are more or less blinded by the desire to win, Noah said in a critical tone. If that's the case, you won't be able to defeat me. It's time to calm down, Abdullah. Indeed, I was blinded by the desire to win. Abdullah took a deep breath and finally calmed down. A smile reappeared on his face. Then, let's start again. Hearing this, Noah suddenly smiled. I'm ready any time. Seeing that Noah and Abdullah were facing each other again, the audience cheered loudly. The atmosphere had reached a peak. Then, a huge amount of mana slowly rose from Noah and Jura's body, igniting the atmosphere of the scene. I'm coming! Abdullah shouted. Iron Rock Pillar. An earthen yellow magic array suddenly spun out from the ground beneath Turtledove. Immediately, huge rock pillars rose from the magic array like sharp thorns. They shot out from the ground and rushed towards Noah. Looking at the huge rock pillars rushing towards him, Noah's body did not move. However, around Noah, a blue magic array suddenly appeared, as if directly imprinted on the space surrounding Noah. Collect. Cast. Projection. Around Noah, one of the magic arrays suddenly gathered mana and turned into a blue flash of light. Like a beam of light, it shot out and instantly struck the huge rock pillars that were charging at him. Bang! A deafening explosion rang out, setting off astonishing flames and shockwaves. The huge rock pillar that was rushing towards them was blasted into dust by the beam of magic power, and was annihilated by the beam of magic power. The mana beam didn't slow down at all as it streaked across the air, creating a sharp sound as it flew towards Kara's direction. Abdullah was suddenly startled. He put his hands together and frantically agitated his magic power. Iron Rock Pillar. The ground beneath Jullah's feet immediately trembled, and a huge rock wall rose up, firmly protecting Jullah behind it. The magic light beam streaked across the space and met him head-on. Boom! Amidst the loud explosion, the magic power beams blasted apart one huge rock wall after another, causing rocks and dust to explode everywhere. A wave of fire and shockwaves swept up in the center of the venue, blowing in all directions. The surrounding audience suddenly cried out in alarm. Hats, bags and trash were swept away by the impact, causing the venue to become a mess. The impact even blew in the direction of the rostrum, causing Chapati, Yajima, and Jenny to cry out in alarm. At this moment, in the middle of the hall, Jullah's roar resounded once again amidst the turbulent waves of fire. Iron Rock Powder Explosion. The moment the violent roar sounded, huge rock pillars with sharp spikes at the top, which were obviously lethal, burst out from all directions of the venue and turned into rock whips. They were like pythons, extremely nimbly sweeping through the space and surrounded Noah. Chapter 1673. Rumble. Under the tremor of the ground, sharp rock pillars sprang up one after another. In an instant, they filled the entire space and turned into agile pythons. One after another, they violently rushed towards the center, mercilessly crashing down at the same time. Noah only felt that the sky suddenly darkened. From all directions of the venue, sharp rock pillars had already swept through the air and heavily fell from the sky. If his ability points were still there, Noah might not even need to dodge or block. He could rely on his powerful durability and magic to weaken physical attacks to resist this level of attack. But now, Noah's ability points had been left in the world between worlds to upgrade. His body had returned to the state before entering the Dark Bullet world. Relying on his current body, if he was hit by those sharp rock spikes, he would definitely end up riddled with holes. Therefore, Noah did not hesitate to chant the incantation. Magic Array Change, Exchange Patterns, Collective Change. The blue magic array imprinted in the space suddenly flashed, like a shield, surrounding Noah. Of course, the magic array did not have the ability to defend. As one of the two magic arrays that Noah had mastered after the integration of rune magic with the authority, these magic arrays were just a cannon. Apart from being a cannon, they did not have any other function. Therefore, after layer upon layer of magic arrays surrounded Noah, the blue magic arrays immediately lit up and gathered magic power. Cast. Magic flashes once again burst out from the magic arrays, causing beams of magic power to burst out in all directions, welcoming the rock spikes. Bang 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 bang. Shocking explosions rang out in the venue one after another. The huge rock thorns that came from all directions were directly blown apart by the magic light beams. The rock thorns exploded into rubble that filled the sky and fell to the ground, causing a burst of crackling sounds. Now! Jura's eyes flashed. Overlord rock shatter. The gravel that fell to the ground suddenly paused, then turned into bullets that suddenly shot in Noah's direction. Noah immediately tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and like a rocket, he rushed towards the sky. The pieces of rubble that shot towards Noah suddenly collided with each other at his original position. The collision between the rocks was like the collision between bombs. It exploded and a burst of flames spread out. In an instant, it covered a quarter of the entire venue, burning the ground until it was black. Noah, who was flying towards the sky, directly released the energy in his body to counteract the gravity and pressure. He floated in the air and looked down at the explosion below. He then raised his eyes and looked towards Jura's direction. Then it's my turn, Noah softly chanted. Magic array change, direct flow, collective release. The magic arrays covering Noah's body began to move again. As they rotated, they turned into turrets and aimed at Turtledove, gathering mana in them. Cast. Flashes of light burst out one after another, causing the magic power to turn into beams of light, causing a sharp sound of breaking through the air. They flashed through the space like a violent storm, falling from the sky and shrouding the ground below. Looking at the terrifying beams of light that fell like a storm, Jura mobilized all the magic power in his body. His robe fluttered as he roared. Rocky Mountain. Suddenly, the ground around Jura began to squirm, and it began to change shape. It surged up like a wave, and then twisted like clay. Finally, it turned into a statue that looked like a war god, covering Jura in it. The beams of light that fell from the sky were like raindrops, falling one by one on the huge statue. Pung 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 pung. Along with the sound of explosions, the beams of light exploded on the huge statue, stirring up flames and attacking the standing war god, causing the ground of the entire venue to shake once again. The audience didn't know how many times they cried out in alarm, but under the tremors of the ground, they became flustered. Monsters? Those two. Even the high mages from the famous guilds couldn't help but cry out, and then they began to stabilize their bodies in a fluster, trying not to be overturned by the tremors of the ground. In this way, only Noah, who was floating in the air, wasn't affected at all. He was still looking down. Pung 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 pung. The beams of magic power continued to explode from the magic arrays as if they didn't cost money. They fell like raindrops, bombarding the war god statue. The continuous bombardment not only caused the ground to shake more and more frequently, but it also caused the waves of fire to spread to the surroundings. It had already spread to the entire venue, burning the ground and the air, causing the temperature to rise little by little. In the venue, everyone was sweating due to the rising temperature. However, the war god statue didn't show any signs of falling apart under the bombardment of the magic cannons. It was still standing, firmly protecting Jura. Looking at this scene, Noah raised his eyebrows. It's so tough. It seems that I don't need to show mercy. After saying that, Noah extended his hand towards the statue of the god of war. Magic array convergence, forward flow patterns, complete. The magic arrays that turned into cannons suddenly rotated in the air like machines and gathered in front of Noah's palm. In an instant, they overlapped one another, and in the blink of an eye, they formed an extremely complex and huge magic array. Clang! An unprecedented light flashed on the complex and huge magic array, causing waves of terrifying magic power to begin to gather inside. In the next moment, Noah suddenly opened his mouth. Cast! As soon as his voice fell, a dazzling light burst out from the magic array, turning into a beam of light that penetrated the sky and earth, and directly fell down. The beam of light evaporated the air, separated the waves of fire, and caused the space to tremble slightly. Then, under the horrified gazes of the audience, it landed on the huge war god statue. An earth-shattering roar resounded and rushed into the sky, causing the whole world to tremble in an instant. It was so piercing that everyone's eardrums were in severe pain. In that instant, everyone in Coloches could see a blinding flash of light blossoming in the hall of the giant egg. Like a tide, the light surged in all directions and covered the entire hall. No one knew how long this phenomenon lasted. It wasn't until the deafening sound disappeared that the dazzling light gradually dissipated, exposing the great demon battle arts exhibition ground to the air. Then, the audience who were covering their ears tentatively opened their eyes that were tightly closed because of the dazzling light and looked at the center of the venue. In the next second, everyone immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. What appeared in front of everyone was a real piece of scorched earth. The previously intact ground was not only covered with cracks, but it was also completely scorched black and emitted wisps of smoke. It was as if it had been burned by magma, causing the air to become somewhat dry and hot. The war god statue that protected Tura had long since disappeared, leaving only pieces of gravel covering the entire venue. In the air, Noah carried the unconscious Tura and slowly landed on the ground. Under the sluggish gazes of the audience, Noah indifferently opened his mouth. "So, the winner has been decided, right?" His words woke everyone up from their stupor. The match is over," Chapati hurriedly announced. "Winner! Fairy Tale B. Noah Dole." The cheers that were louder than any of the previous ones soared into the sky, announcing the end of the match. Chapter 1674. Under the cheers of the audience, Noah brought the fainted Kara back to the contestant area of Lamia Scales and left her under their care. Then, he left under the awestruck gazes of Leo and Shirley, and returned to his own contestant area amidst the cheers of his companions. Looking at the smiling Noah under the support of his companions, the other high mages of the other guilds also looked at him in awe. Many people had already heard of the rumors about Noah. However, that was 7 years ago. Time was always merciless. 7 years was quite a long time. At the very least, it was enough to make people forget the glory of a person. There was a saying, "Seeing is believing, but hearing is false." After 7 years, even though many people knew that Noah had killed one of the 10 great saint mages, it was just a rumor that couldn't arouse the reverence of others if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes. Not to mention, when he killed Joseph, Noah did not personally make a move. Instead, he let the golden wolf Bio, who was still fused with his soul at that time, finish off Joseph. Thus, in the eyes of others, Noah was perhaps just a high mage who used a powerful tamed beast to achieve his glory. However, it was different now. Noah not only defeated a 10 great saint mage in front of everyone's eyes, but he also did not suffer a single injury during the whole process. He even looked quite relaxed. This way, even if people were not convinced, they had no choice but to accept it. Thus, in the audience, Noah's name was constantly mentioned. His appearance was also firmly engraved in the hearts of everyone who watched this match. In the contestant area of Raventail, Alexei looked at the completely scorched arena, the expression under his mask extremely uncertain. It was unknown whether or not he had sensed the uncertainty in Alexei's heart, but a short, fat, and annoying-looking fatty spoke in a low voice. "Sir Alexei, do we still continue with our plan?" "Continue." Alexei gritted his teeth hatefully. "I must obtain Lumen Starlight." "But Lord Alexei, that Noah Dole is so strong." "I'm worried that if we act carelessly, our plan might be exposed ahead of time," the short fatty reminded. "What do you think we should do?" Alexei's face darkened. However, it had to be said that Alexei was indeed worried about this. Looking at Noah, who was being supported by everyone in the contestant area of Fairy Tale, Alexei struggled in his heart for a while. In the end, he let out a light breath and said coldly, "Then, before we start the plan, let's not make a move against the members of Fairy Tale for the time being. If you guys come across any members of Fairy Tale, use your own strength to deal with them. Don't play tricks and ruin my plan." "Got it," the short fatty agreed. Only then did Alexei's expression become better. Looking at Noah, who was being supported by everyone, he snorted coldly and turned his head away. At the same time, in the contestant area of Saber-Tooth, the group of magic shooters fell into silence. Looking at the venue that was severely scorched and recalling the terrifying magic power that erupted from Noah's body and that pillar of light that pierced through the sky, the group of people couldn't help but clench their fists. In the end, it was Lucifer who broke the silence first. "We have to admit that we underestimated this Noah Dole. To be able to easily deal with the power of the 10 great Saint Magi, that power is genuine," Roger also interjected, which was rare for him. "He's much stronger than we thought." "I know, I don't need you to remind me." Christine was speechless. After we go back, I will be responsible for reporting this matter to the president and let him make a decision. Don't we need to call the young mistress back? Olga asked in a deep voice. If we don't gather the 5 strongest people, we might not be able to win against that guy. The young mistress is working outside now. It's estimated that she won't be able to come to Colocha's until tomorrow, Lucifer said. If we call the young mistress back now, it might be very troublesome. There's no need to go to that extent. Christine pursed her lips. The Great Magic Combat Arts Competition isn't a one-person competition, but a guild competition. So what if he's the only strong one? If it's only one person, he won't be able to shake our Saber-Tooth's position as the strongest. Everyone nodded in agreement. The truth was indeed so. The Great Magic Combat Arts Competition was a competition between guilds. No matter how strong Noah was, under the constraints of the rules, he wouldn't be able to reverse the situation. Not to mention other things, just for the duel, the contestants were all decided by the organizers. Noah might not be chosen to fight. And as long as Noah couldn't fight, this person was nothing to worry about. As for the competition, it wasn't necessarily a competition of strength. It wasn't certain who would win and who would lose. Therefore, although Christine and the others already looked at Noah in a new light, they didn't panic because of it. Besides, no matter how strong Noah was, it had nothing to do with Christine and the others. After all, the opponent that Christine and Roger had their eyes on wasn't Noah in the first place. There's only one person I want to fight. Christine's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Nazdo Lagner, if you don't have the strength of Noah Dole, then just wait to kneel in front of me. Gadjaloo. Roger's eyes also flashed. You were once mercilessly defeated by Noah Dole. How strong are you now? Let me see. As for Lucifer and Olga, they didn't have any opponents that they wanted, so they fell silent. Ignoring the conversation of Christine and the others, Xuanai just kept looking in the direction of Noah, her eyes rippling with a strange light. Lord Noah, you are indeed the strongest, but I won't lose to you. No, I can't lose. When the various guilds began to pay attention to Noah, no one noticed. In the corner of the spectator seats, there was a person wearing a black robe and a hood. His face couldn't be seen clearly at all. This person was staring at Noah, who was being supported by his companions in the guild. He couldn't believe it and squeezed out this sentence in a panic. Who is he? There's no such person in the guild. Not a single person paid attention to this sentence. After Noah's match ended, there were 3 more matches. However, these 3 matches weren't as interesting as the one between Noah and Jura. The matchups of the 3 matches are as follows. Blue Pegasus vs. Mermaid Heel. Saber-Tooth vs. Cotter Cerberus. Fairy Tail a team vs. Raven Tail. In the first match, Lotus from Blue Pegasus took the field and fought against a member of Mermaid Heel. In the end, Lotus won. In the second match, Olga from Saber-Tooth fought against a member of Cotter Cerberus and also won. The third match was between Lucy from Fairy Tail A and a girl named Freya from Raven Tail. She was a member of Fairy Tail, and her opponent was Lucy from Fairy Tail A. Freya was also a member of Raven Tail. In the end, perhaps because of Alexi's instructions, Freya didn't show off too much and was defeated by Lucy, who had learned how to double open the door. Just like this, the 2 teams of Fairy Tail won at the same time in the duel and both earned a valuable 10 points, causing the guild's ranking to jump to the top. Chapter 1675. Thus, the first day of the Great Magic Battle Exhibition came to an end. As the sun gradually began to set in the west, the spectators began to walk out of the stadium one by one. On one hand, they were talking about today's match, and on the other, they were looking forward to tomorrow's match. It had to be said that today's competition could indeed be considered exciting. In the PvP segment, the audience saw with their own eyes the strength of the strongest guild, Saber-Tooth. During the duel segment, the audience saw with their own eyes how terrifying Fairy Tail, once known as the strongest guild in the game, was. Noah and UNI's performance made the audience leave the venue with great satisfaction, and they were looking forward to tomorrow's competition. And these people did not realize it. Among the topics they talked about, the name Fairy Tail, which was despised by everyone before today, kept popping up. The so-called mortals were so realistic. Before Fairy Tale had shown enough ability, everyone looked down on it. And after Fairy Tale displayed enough power, everyone began to revere it again. In the end, for these people, the world of sorcerers was a world that was difficult to reach. Therefore, the rise of Fairy Tale did not hurt or itch these people at all. As long as the following competition was exciting enough, then, for these ordinary people, it was enough. Of course, at best, it was only for ordinary people. For those sorcerers, the power displayed by Fairy Tale and Sabertooth today would definitely make many people think about it. Would Fairy Tale be the one to regain their past glory? Or would Sabertooth continue to maintain the title of the strongest? Everyone began to discuss animatedly, and they were looking forward to it. Under such circumstances, no one realized. Unknowingly, they had already begun to compare Fairy Tale with Sabertooth. Similarly, no one realized. At this moment, at the top of the dome, a man wearing armor was looking down at the crowd that was gradually flowing out of the venue. His face was extremely solemn. This person was impressively the commander of the Fiori Kingdom's Sakura Knights that had a short conflict with Noah yesterday, Alcardios. Finally, the great demonic combat arts exhibition is about to begin again. Alcardios muttered to himself. This year is already the 7th year, right? Up until this year, the Great Magic Battle Exhibition had been held for a total of 7 years. 7 years of time was enough to turn the once glorious Fairy Tale into a bottom feeder guild. It was also enough for the once insignificant Sabertooth to rise up and become the strongest guild in the game. But, for the kingdom, these were not that important. The reason why the kingdom held the Great Magic Battle Exhibition was not to entertain the people, but for their own purpose. This purpose very few people knew. And Alcardios just so happened to be one of the core figures. In order to carry out the kingdom's plan, we spent 7 years preparing. With the Great Magic Battle Exhibition as bait, we made the Magic Guide Guild from all over the kingdom gather here every year and let the elites of these guilds compete in order to collect a large amount of magic. Alcardios slowly raised the corner of his mouth. It seems that after this year's Great Magic Battle Exhibition, we will be able to collect all the magic we need. It would take 7 years to collect the magic power. One could only imagine how much magic power the kingdom required. At least, Alcardios was prepared to use more time to collect the magic. But, this year there was an anomaly. Noah Dole. To think that he could possess such a level of magic power on his own. What a frightening sorcerer. Alcardios recalled the scene with his own eyes today, and revealed a smile with lingering fear and unusual excitement. However, thanks to him, the amount of mana we'll be able to gather this year will definitely be greater than any of the previous years. Once this year's Great Demon Battle Exhibition is over, we'll definitely be able to gather all the mana we need. Not only that. In addition to the large amount of magic, Alcardios and the kingdom's plan require the assistance of another kind of person. Archmages of the Star Spirits. The smile on Alcardios' face became wider. I didn't expect that 2 Archmages of the Star Spirits would appear in this year's Great Magic Battle Exhibition. It's as if fate is starting to help us. The so-called Star Spirit magic was an ancient magic that summoned the star spirits of a total of 88 constellations from the star spirit world for one's own use. This ancient magic was not only very rare, but it was also said that if the key to the top of the 88 constellations was collected, it could even be used to change one's fate. To this day, there were only a few people who could use this magic in the entire Fiori Kingdom. And the kingdom's plan just happened to require the power of Archmages of the Star Spirits. For this reason, in the 7 years of collecting magic, the kingdom had spared no effort in searching for Archmages of the Star Spirits. In the end, they could not find a single one. Originally, the kingdom was prepared to give up on searching for Archmages of the Star Spirits, and use magic similar to Archmages of the Star Spirits as a substitute to start the plan. Who knew that 2 Archmages of the Star Spirits would appear in this year's Great Magic Battle Exhibition? Moreover, those 2 Archmages of the Star Spirits have a certain degree of relationship with Noah Dole. This is really too much of a coincidence. Alcardios looked up at the sky and spread out his hands, loudly declaring, Noah Dole, Lucy Hatfilia, Snow Agulia. I'm here, looking forward to you being the last key to completing our plan. The last key to completing our solar eclipse plan. On the other side, Fairy Tale, who had left the venue, did not directly return to the hotel. Instead, They went to the bar and started eating and drinking. The reason for doing so was actually very simple. Apart from needing to fill their stomachs, they also wanted to celebrate the victory of the first battle of the day. Even though in the PvP segment, because of Snow's strength that exceeded everyone's expectations, Fairy Tail didn't obtain a complete victory. But Gray and Julian weren't just for show either, obtaining 4 points and 3 points for their respective teams. In addition, Noah and Lucy had both won the duel and won the most important 10 points. The two teams were now at the top of the rankings. They were only below Sabertooth, who had won 10 points in both the duel and the duel. If this continued, it was not impossible for them to return to the first place. Not to mention Makarov, even members such as Makarov and Wakaba, who were not optimistic about participating in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition before, couldn't help but shout loudly that they needed to celebrate. So, a group of Fairy Tail's magic shooters gathered in a bar, eating and drinking while making a ruckus. It seemed that they were going to make a ruckus for the whole night. In the direction of the bar, Noah was holding a glass of wine, looking at his companions who were making a ruckus, but he was lost in thought. Looking at Noah like this, Makarov, who was already a little drunk, couldn't help but wonder. "What are you thinking about?" Hearing this, Noah hesitated for a moment, then said to Makarov, "Grandpa, did you notice that today's Great Demonic Combat Arts competition seemed a little strange?" Chapter 1676. Strange Place. Makarov was stunned. However, after hearing Noah's words, the drunkenness in Makarov's mind disappeared. Because Makarov knew that since Noah said so, it meant that he had discovered something. Makarov was very clear about his grandson's ability. If Noah had really discovered something, then this matter was most likely not as simple as it seemed. Thus, Makarov asked directly, "Could it be that you discovered something?" "Yes." Noah nodded and reminded him. "Grandfather, do you still remember the competition of mana between Tura and I before the start of the competition?" "How could I forget that kind of thing?" Makarov sighed. "I reckon that no one who saw that scene would be able to forget it, right?" That was not an exaggeration. After all, Noah and Tura had both used pure mana to cause a natural phenomenon. That level of mana was indeed very shocking. Not to mention Karagu, Noah's magic almost destroyed the entire Fra-bird egg. Who could forget that kind of scene? At least, as a magic shooter, Makarov would not be able to forget that shocking scene. However, Makarov was only happy about it. Since young, Noah's mana had been different from ordinary people. Before he started learning magic, he was already much stronger than Makarov, who was one of the 10 great Saint Magi. He had even gone berserk and almost destroyed the guild. Because of this, Makarov had let Noah train his mana control since young, and never let Noah learn magic. From then on, Makarov knew. In the future, Noah was destined to soar to the sky. Noah did not disappoint Makarov's expectations. 7 years ago, Noah had already killed one of the 10 great Saint Magi. Back at Skywolf Island, Noah had even killed Hades, who was far more powerful than Makarov, who was one of the top 10 Saint Magi. Therefore, Makarov wasn't surprised at all about Noah's victory over Dura. What Makarov was truly surprised was that Noah's mana had grown to an unimaginable level. That level of mana had caused a phenomenon. If not for the fact that Makarov already knew about Noah's mana when he was young and trusted Noah's character, he would have thought that Noah had used the power of Lumen Starlight to display that level of mana. While Makarov was sighing, Noah suddenly said something. "In fact, when I was competing with Tura today, I discovered that the mana I released was being absorbed by something." "Your mana was being absorbed?" Makarov raised his head in surprise and looked at Noah. "What's going on?" "I also don't know," Noah said, somewhat distressed. "That's why I asked Grandpa if you found anything strange." After noticing that his mana was being absorbed, Noah deliberately released his perception ability in the next few duels in an attempt to find something. In the end, Noah discovered that it wasn't just him. The other high mages would more or less lose a small amount of mana when using magic. If this small amount of mana was lost under normal circumstances, it would definitely be discovered by the high mages themselves. But during a battle, high mages needed to consume mana, and that level of mana loss was not easy to detect. Only Noah, with his superb perception ability, could discover this phenomenon. If it had been anyone else, they really wouldn't have been able to discover it. "Mana has been sucked away?" Makarov put down the wine glass in his hand, and his wrinkled brows began to furrow. This problem can be big or small. If the mana of the high mages being absorbed was just a coincidence or a natural phenomenon, then there was nothing strange about it. This world was full of all kinds of magical miracles. Sometimes, some strange occurrences were similar to natural occurrences, and there was nothing strange about it. But if it was a man-made problem, then it was different. For example, the king of the world of Edras once had designs on Aslan's mana, and didn't hesitate to use the super subspace magic, anima, to turn Aslan's high mages into magic crystals and use them as consumables. That was a matter of life and death, and couldn't be ignored. Another example was Jalal, in order to recreate the forbidden magic that could resurrect people, spent 8 years and used a large amount of magic crystals to build the Paradise Tower, and used it to activate the forbidden magic called our system. That was a problem that involved taboos, and couldn't be ignored. In this world of magic, the so-called mana was that important. Therefore, the existence of lumen starlight was something that transcended time. With it, any kind of forbidden magic could be used at will, and there was no need to spend time to collect mana. If it fell into the hands of evil people, it would be like the third perpetual motion mechanism that was abused, and would only be reduced to an element that could destroy mankind. If the mana of the high mages that appeared in the Great Magic Battle Exhibition had been artificially absorbed and collected, then there would be a need to worry about whether someone wanted to use that mana to use forbidden spells or magic-conducting weapons that could endanger humans. Thinking of this, Makarov spoke solemnly. Could it be that Ivan did something evil to get his hands on lumen starlight?
I've thought about it too, Noah agreed.
It's just that when fighting with Lucy, Freya, who belonged to Raventail, also had a small part of her mana sucked away. If it was Raventail who did it, then there was no reason to absorb the mana of her own people.
You're right.
Makarov nodded.
It seems that it's necessary to investigate this matter a little.
I don't think this matter is that simple.
Noah looked at Makarov and instructed.
So, Grandpa, if you plan to investigate, don't make too big of a move, so as not to arouse the vigilance of the mastermind behind the scenes and attract unnecessary trouble.
Your consideration is right. Makarov replied in agreement. Don't worry, I'll investigate in secret and won't let the matter leak out. Only then did Noah's expression relax a little. At this time, Elusha came to Noah with a joyful expression. Looking at Elusha's happy face, Noah asked curiously, "What makes you so happy?"
It's indeed something to be happy about.
Elusha smiled.
Noah, if you're free now, why don't you come with me?
Go out. Noah blinked. Where are we going?
To see someone.
The smile on Elusha's face didn't disappear as she said so.
No, to be more precise, it should be 2 people.
Hearing this, Noah's heart moved as he vaguely knew who Elusha wanted him to see. Under the lead of Elusha, Noah walked out of the hotel and walked to one of the streets of Kolochas. Not long after, Noah and Elusha came to a park. And in the park, 2 figures were standing there, talking about something. Looking at the 2 figures standing in the park, Noah, who had already guessed who Elusha wanted him to see, thought in his mind. Standing there were 2 members of the mermaid heel. One was Kagura. The other was the black-robed person who looked at Noah with ridicule and mockery during the qualifier. However, the latter's black robe had been taken off, revealing her original appearance. Taking a closer look, it was a rather sexy and beautiful girl. She wore clothes that looked like a bikini, but also looked like a restraint suit. Her hairstyle was like a cat's, with cat ears protruding like a cat's, and even a cat's tail on her back. She looked like a beautiful cat girl. Noah also knew this girl. And it was 7 years ago in the Paradise Tower. It was Mariana. Chapter 1677. At this time, Kagura and Milyana, who were talking about something, also noticed Noah and Elusha walking into the park and cast their gazes at them.
Little Elu.
Milyana waved at Elusha happily, then looked at Noah and winked mischievously.
Little Noah, you're finally here.
Don't call me Little Noah, Noah said helplessly. Unlike us, you haven't been stopped for 7 years. You're 7 years older. Why are you still so naughty?
It's because 7 years have passed.
I'm older than you now. Isn't it good to call you Little Noah? Milyana giggled. And, I've always been like this. After all, I have the strongest vitality. Hearing this,
Noah couldn't help but smile, but he didn't really feel that it was bad. Seeing that Noah wasn't very surprised, Elisha felt strange. Noah, did you already know that Miliana had joined the mermaid heel? I only found out yesterday. Noah explained. After I passed the preliminaries, I asked Grandpa to help me find information on the 8 teams participating in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. It was then that I found out that Miliana had joined the mermaid heel. Similarly, Noah also knew that the black-robed person in the mermaid heel was Miliana at that time. So when Elisha asked Noah to come out and meet people with a happy face, Noah guessed that Elisha had discovered Miliana's true colors. What? Elisha said with some annoyance. Since you already know about Miliana, why did you ask me to help you investigate? I told you, I only found out after I went back and asked Grandpa to find the information. Noah smiled bitterly. Well, anyway, that's why you found out Miliana's true colors, right? That's right. Miliana hugged Elisha and rubbed Elisha's face while speaking cheerfully. To be honest, when little Elu came to the Mermaid Heel Hotel to find me, I was shocked. I planned to wait until the end of the Great Demon Battle Arts competition to reveal my true colors. Since you're here, you should have met me earlier. Elisha didn't refuse Miliana's intimacy, but she reprimanded her. I missed you guys. I missed you too, little Elu. Miliana smiled and hugged Elisha tightly. Hugh, Simon, and Wooly and the others missed you too. By the way, since you've joined the Mermaid Heel, what about Simon and the others? Noah asked. Did they also join a guild? No, I'm the only one who joined a guild. Simon and the others are still traveling. Miliana let go of Elisha and hugged Kagura. Besides, I only joined because little Kagura is in the mermaid heel. Hearing this, Noah and Elisha turned their gazes to Kagura. Under Noah and Elisha's gazes, Kagura gently pushed away Miliana and came to Noah. Kagura raised her head and looked at Noah with a serious expression. I've wanted to see you for a long time. I can see that. Noah met Kagura's gaze and said directly. Since it's already like this, please allow me to ask you a question. Do we know each other? As early as the first time they met, Kagura had shown a certain degree of interest in Noah. Although it wasn't as serious as Yukino's, Noah knew that Kagura also had some connection with him. It wasn't until he learned that Miliana was in the mermaid heel that Noah felt that perhaps Kagura was paying attention to him solely because of Miliana. Unfortunately, Noah guessed incorrectly. We really don't know each other, Kagura said. But my older brother has mentioned you in front of me more than once, and he's praised you a lot. Older brother? That's your older brother, right? Noah said in surprise. Your older brother knows me? The one who answered this question wasn't Kagura, but Miliana. Don't be scared, Miliana said with a mischievous smile. Kagura-chan is actually Simon's younger sister, his biological younger sister. Simon's younger sister? Noah looked at Kagura in surprise. You're Simon's younger sister? What? Elisha also stood up in surprise and looked at Kagura with surprise. You're Simon's younger sister? As early as when the Tower of Paradise incident was resolved, Simon mentioned to everyone that he had a younger sister who had been separated from him since he was a child. In order to find his younger sister's whereabouts, as well as to see the world, Simon took Miliana, Zio, and Wooly on a trip together. This Kagura in front of them was actually Simon's younger sister? Presumably, you already know that my older brother and I were separated from each other when we were young. All these years, I've been searching for my older brother's whereabouts, Kagura explained. It wasn't until a few years ago that I finally found my older brother, and learned about what happened to him all these years. I also learned about your existence from my older brother. Especially you, Mr. Noah. My older brother already told me that the reason why he was released from the Tower of Paradise was because you defeated Jalal and awakened him. Kagura gripped the katana in her hand tightly and bowed deeply to Noah. For this, I can only offer you the highest level of gratitude. This kindness, I will definitely remember it in my heart. If there's anything you need me for, please don't hesitate to tell me. As long as it's something I can do, I will do my best. Both Kagura's expression and tone were incredibly sincere when she said this. Obviously, these words all came from Kagura's heart. Under such circumstances, Noah and Elisha finally recovered from their shock, looked at each other, and then smiled faintly. At that moment, Noah spread his hands and said so. If that's the case, why don't you show me some mercy if we meet in the competition? I can't do that. Kagura raised her head and looked at Noah with an extremely solemn expression. Your Excellency's strength is very strong. If you show me mercy, I don't have the confidence to win against you. Is that so? Noah smiled faintly. To be praised as the strongest archmage in this year's Great Demon Combat Arts competition, except for that Rock Iron Kara, is really something to be proud of. It's a pity that even Rock Iron Kara was easily defeated by Your Excellency. Kagura's expression slightly relaxed, but she still said so. So when facing Your Excellency, I will definitely not show you mercy. Please be prepared. Of course. Noah nodded. I will remember it in my heart. Okay, let's stop with the greetings of our first meeting. Miriana said in an extremely lively manner. Since everyone is already familiar with each other, let's go eat together. Noah, Elisha, and Kagura all nodded without any objections. Just like this, the reason why Kagura showed a certain degree of concern towards Noah finally understood. However, while one doubt was solved, more doubt still existed in Noah's heart. For example, why was Yuno so obsessed with Noah? What was the matter with the magic absorption phenomenon that occurred in the giant egg, for bird? Could it be that there was some secret behind the great demonic martial arts exhibition ceremony? Was Raventail, who was staring at Lumen's starlight, secretly planning something? One question after another remained unanswered. Almost instinctively, Noah had a faint premonition in his heart. The so-called Great Demon Combat Arts Competition Festival might not be as simple as it seemed on the surface. This time's trip to the King's City might bring about some unavoidable things. However, no matter what happened, as the Archmage of Fairy Tale, Noah would never compromise and would fight to the end. Chapter 1678. The next day, the residents of Clocaska woke up early as usual, full of anticipation as they waited for the start of the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. The people who had tickets couldn't wait any longer and started to move towards the venue. One by one, they entered the giant egg for bird. As for those without tickets, they gathered in places with projection magic crystals, such as bars, hotels, and restaurants. As they enjoyed their breakfast, they discussed what would happen in today's competition, never tiring of conversation. The group of sorcerers belonging to Fairy Tale did not waste any time. When the sun rose, they hastily finished their breakfast and began to move towards the direction of the huge egg, for bird. Along the way, many people were pointing at the members of Fairy Tale and gossiping about them in private. If it had been before yesterday, these people would not have been as simple as pointing and discussing. However, after yesterday's exciting performance, no one dared to look down on Fairy Tale now. They could only cast curious and respectful gazes at Fairy Tale's group. Suddenly, Makeo and Wakaba, who had been looked down upon for 7 years, felt a sense of pride rise in their hearts. Even their backs straightened a lot. Thus, the group arrived at Egg for Bird together. Because the contestants in the audience entered from different passageways, Noah's group of 10 contestants separated from Fairy Tale's group and went to another passageway. In the end, they met an unexpected opponent. Oh, aren't you guys from Fairy Tale? Sting, who had entered the contestant passageway with Logue, Lucius, Alyaga, and Shuanai, noticed Noah's group. He immediately stopped and looked around at everyone present. Finally, his gaze stopped on Naz, and the corners of his mouth slowly rose. This is really a fortuitous encounter. I can't believe we met here. Logue, who was walking with Sting, immediately looked at Gadjaloo with a cold glint in his eyes. As for Shuanai, she naturally looked straight at Noah. As usual, she only had eyes for Noah. Under such circumstances, Lucius and Alyaga actually looked at the same person. Lucius was looking at Gray. Alyaga was looking at Laxus. The group of people looked at each other from a distance. The sight that met in mid-air seemed to be able to ignite sparks, and there was a slight smell of gunpowder in the air. The rest of the sorcerers from Fairy Tale, who were not targeted by Saber-Tooth's group, noticed something else that surprised them. That was, besides Sting and Logue were 2 cats. The 2 cats, like Habi, Xiaolulu, and Lily, walked on 2 legs, just like humans. Next to Sting was a cat wearing a vest. Next to Logue was a cat wearing a frog costume.
Looking at the two cats, Lucy exclaimed in surprise.
Could it be that they are surpassers from the world of Edras like Habi, Sialulu, and Lily?
Her words attracted everyone's attention to the two cats. How rude. I forgot to introduce our companions.
Sting curled his lips and smiled.
Rector, come out and say hello to everyone from Fairy Tale.
Hello, everyone, the surpasser named Rector said pretentiously as he adjusted his vest.
Flossie, come out and say hello.
Yes, sir, the surpasser named Flossie replied slowly and raised his hand.
I'm Flossie.
Rector is my companion.
Flossie is Logue's companion. Sting grinned. I heard you have a companion like Flossie?
Naz. Habi is a cat.
Naz pointed at Flossie, who was wearing a frog costume. Undoubtedly, this one is a dog. Is there something wrong with your eyes? Gray ridiculed mercilessly. Undoubtedly, that's a frog.
Are you not Sikuan? Rector sized Naz up and then said as if he had lost interest.
I heard that you are a dragon-slaying archmage like Sting and Logue. I was looking forward to it, but it seems that you have let me down. Rector's words shocked everyone present. Noah was also surprised and looked at Sting and Logue. The same dragon-slaying archmage?
Wendy exclaimed as she looked at Sting and Logue.
Are you also dragon-slaying archmages? Immediately, Gadjaloo and Raxus cast their gazes towards Justin and Logue. It wasn't until then that Noah faintly felt it. Sting and Logue did have the same type of magic as Naz, Gadjaloo, Wendy, and Laxus. It was the magic of a dragon. Smell it carefully. The two of you do have the smell of a dragon.
Gadjaloo stared at Sting and Logue.
So, you are also dragon-slaying archmages?
That's right.
The corners of Sting's mouth rose. However, we are also dragon-slaying archmages.
As the third generation, we are not on the same level as the first and second generation. First generation.
Elusha frowned. What do you mean?
Hearing this, Rector took a step forward and began to explain.
The first generation refers to the archmages who were personally taught the dragon slayer magic by the dragon. For example, the dragon slayer archmages of the fire dragon, the dragon slayer archmages of the iron dragon, and the dragon slayer archmages of the sky dragon are very typical of the first generation of dragon slayer archmages.
Rector said slowly.
The second generation refers to the archmages who have magic crystals with dragon-slaying magic buried in their bodies. For example, the Thunder Dragon's dragon-slaying archmages are second-generation dragon-slaying archmages. As for the third generation, it refers to dragon-slaying archmages like Sting and Logue.
Rector puffed out his chest, as if he was talking about himself, and spoke very proudly.
There are dragons who personally teach dragon-slaying magic and bury magic crystals of the same attribute in their bodies. This is the third-generation dragon-slaying archmages. By the way, I am the White Dragon's dragon-slaying archmage, and Logue is the Shadow Dragon's dragon-slaying archmage. Sting spread his hands and smiled proudly at Naz. Although I have no interest in being a dragon-slaying archmage of the old generation, don't look at me like this. In fact, I grew up listening to Brother Naz's legends when I was young. I have admired you since I was a child. At this point, the smile on Sting's face became somewhat sinister. He clenched a fist and stared at Naz. That's why I have to defeat you and prove that I have surpassed you. Same for me, Gadjaloo.
Logue raised his eyes and looked straight at Gadjaloo.
I grew up listening to your legends since I was a child. I will defeat you with my own hands and prove that I am stronger than you. Hearing this, Noah understood why Sting and Logue had been paying so much attention to Naz and Gadjaloo. It turned out that there was such a reason. You. Gadjaloo's gaze became somewhat dangerous. If you can do it, then give it a try.
Naz grinned, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. That's exactly what I want.
Thus, the gazes of the dragon-slaying archmages collided once again, stirring up sparks. At this time, Olyaga glanced at Laxus and smiled coldly. Although I am not a dragon-slaying archmage, I know how to use lightning-attributed magic. Thunder Dragon over there, are you interested in exchanging a few moves? Laxus didn't answer, only narrowing his eyes. Lucius pressed down on his hat and smiled elegantly. My magic isn't the same as yours. It's just a creation magic, said Yizichin.
Sculpt magic. Gray immediately reacted and stared at Lucifer. And Shuanai is a star elemental archmage. Sting shrugged. It seems that we do have a lot of similarities. Chapter 1679. After hearing Sting's words, the group of fairy tale magic shooters fell silent. Come to think of it, fairy tale sorcerer and saber-tooth sorcerer did have a lot of similarities. At the very least, the group of magic shooters here had many similarities. Naz, Gadjaloo, Wendy, Sting, and Rog were all Dragon Slayer magic shooters. Laxus and Alyaga were both thunder magic shooters of the Annihilation system. Gray and Lucius were both creation magic shooters. Lucy and Snow were both star magic shooters. In addition, Fairy Tail and Sabertooth were once the strongest guild in the kingdom, and the current strongest guild in the kingdom. There were so many coincidences that made it seem like it was fated to happen. However, at this moment, Noah suddenly spoke. Why does your Sabertooth want to be the strongest guild? The sudden question stunned the group of Sabertooth's magic shooters. When they reacted, Sting was the first to laugh out loud. I thought you wanted to ask something, but it's actually such a question. Do we need a reason to be the strongest? Hearing this, Noah laughed, laughing very disapprovingly. Then Noah said, That's right. If that's the case, then we are indeed different from you. Sting and the others were stunned. Under such circumstances, Noah took a step forward and came in front of everyone. His gaze swept over Sting, Rog, Lucius, Alyaga, and Yukinai. After a while he said word by word. The so-called guild is a place where companions, family, and friends gather. Only when everyone gathers together can it be called a guild. Therefore, we will fight for our companions and become the strongest. As for you, you're just fighting for your reputation at best. You're not on the same level as our beliefs. Noah said resolutely. So we are different. No, it should be said that you can't compare to us. What did you say? Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga were all enraged. Only Shuanai's heart shuddered slightly after hearing Noah's words. He lowered his head and bit his lips. On the other hand, the members of Fairy Tail all showed expressions of agreement. When they looked at the members of Sabertooth, their gazes no longer carried any emotions. In the eyes of the magic shooters from Sabertooth, it was as if he was looking down on them from above. Thus, fury rose in the hearts of Sting and the others. However, before they could make a move, Noah turned around as if he didn't want to be entangled with them anymore. Let's go. After saying that, Noah ignored Sting and the others and walked toward the venue. The rest of his companions followed suit one by one, as if they did not want to talk to Sabertooth's group anymore. They all walked into the venue together. Wait! Sting shouted. Are you trying to escape? Everyone ignored Sting and continued to walk forward. That action caused the anger in Sting's heart to rise to the peak. Soon after, he was so angry that he laughed. Very well, since that's the case, I will participate in the competition later. Let me completely crush your useless self-confidence. This sentence made Noah stop in his tracks. He turned his head and looked at Sting with an undeniable smile. Likewise, likewise. Just wait and see if your useless self-confidence will be crushed. After saying that, Noah didn't say anything else. He led the members of Fairy Tail into the venue, leaving Sting and the others behind. The anger in their hearts couldn't be quelled for a long time. Behind Sting and the others, Snow looked straight at Noah's departing figure. She recalled Noah's words just now, and her eyes were full of uncertainty. Become the strongest for the sake of your companions? After leaving the field of vision of Sting and the others, Naz immediately spoke. Hey Elisha, Naz said. Let me participate in the competition later. Everyone's eyes immediately gathered on Naz. Seeing that Naz's face was full of fighting spirit, Elisha, Gray, Lucy, and Wendy looked at each other. Clearly, Naz's fighting spirit had been ignited by Sting. As a high mage of the dragon-slaying realm, Naz should also have the idea of competing with Justin, right? Thus, Elisha nodded. Then I'll leave it to you, Naz. Naz hammered his palm, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. I'm burning up. In that case, I'll go on our side. Gadjaloo also said, unwilling to be outdone. I've been annoyed by those guys for a long time. Mira, Julian, and Laxus's eyes suddenly gathered on Noah. If the leader of Team A was Alusha, then the leader of Team B was undoubtedly Noah. In this regard, Noah just pondered for a while before looking at Gajaloo. This time, I won't allow myself to lose to someone from Sabertooth. Even so, do you still plan to fight? You won't allow yourself to lose. Gajaloo revealed a rather dangerous grin. Just what I want. Looking at the dangerous smile on Gajaloo's face and the strong will in his eyes, Noah stared at Gajaloo for a while before finally nodding. Then I'll leave it to you. Hello everyone, it's time for the Great Demon Battle Show to begin again. I'm your live reporter, Chabati Laura. I'll be looking forward to today's show. On the rostrum of the Dome for Bird, Chapati picked up the microphone and greeted the audience who were cheering loudly. He then introduced Ajima, who was next to him. The person in charge of commentary is still our Mr. Ajma, and the distinguished guest we've invited today is a reporter from Magic Weekly, Mr. Jason. Magic Weekly. Cool. The reporter named Jason shook his arms very excitedly, as if he had been stimulated by something, or simply shocked by lightning, making people unable to ridicule him. Ignoring Jason like this, Chabati continued to report. After yesterday's Great Demon Battle Show, the rankings of the top 8 guilds have changed to a certain extent. The current rankings are as follows. First place, Sabertooth, 20p. Second place, Fairy Tail A Team, 14p. Third place, Fairy Tail B Team, 13p. Fourth place, Blue Pegasus, 12p. Fifth place, Lamia Scale, 8p. Sixth place, Raven Tail, 6p. Seventh place, Mermaid Heel, 1p. Eighth place, Cotter Cerberus, 0p. The guild that took the first place is the guild that everyone is familiar with, Sabertooth. No wonder they are the strongest guild in the past. Chapati explained enthusiastically. However, behind them, our Fairy Tail is also closely following. There are actually 2 teams occupying the second and third place respectively. It's really unbelievable. The strongest guild in the past is really not just for show. After today's competition, what kind of changes will happen? Let's wait and see. Chabati announced. Then, the second day of the Great Demon Battle Show begins now. Chapter 1680. Accompanied by the loud sound of wheels, wooden chariots drove through the streets of Kolochas in a grandiose manner. The wooden war chariots were all connected together by iron chains, forming a long line. Amidst the loud sound of wheels, the chariots moved at a steady speed towards the direction of the giant egg frage. On the moving wooden chariots, a group of magic shooters were racing. That's right, it was a race. Through the projection magic crystal set up in Egg for Bird, the magic shooters and the audience from all over the continent could clearly see the entire process of the race. However, it was precisely because of this that all the audience fell into a very strange state of silence when they saw the situation on the projection magic crystal. In particular, the magic shooters from Fairy Tail and Sabertooth had already entered an extremely speechless state. There was no other reason other than the fact that the outcome of the competition was beyond everyone's expectations. The competition on the second day of the Great Demonic Combat Arts Exhibition competition was about chariots. The rules of this competition were very simple. It was to let the contestants of the 8 teams race on the chariots. During the race, the contestants could not fall off the chariot. Once they touched the ground outside the chariot, they would be eliminated. During this period, there were no restrictions on the use of magic, nor were there any restrictions on the use of any means. As long as they did not fall off the chariot and successfully reached the finish line, it would be considered over. Finally, according to the order of arrival at the finish line, the teams of each guild would receive different points. It was such a simple competition. However, it was precisely because of this competition that the audience in the entire venue was speechless. The reason was because of the situation shown in the last projection magic crystal. Woo! In the last part of the wooden chariots that were moving towards the flattened egg, 3 sorcerers were lying on the chariots with ashen faces. They were like worms that were constantly wriggling forward. Those 3 people were Naz, Gajaloo, and Sting. The contestants of the other teams had already far surpassed these 3 people, and opened up a distance that was absolutely impossible to surpass. Only Naz, Gajaloo, and Sting were lying on the chariot like worms, crawling forward with great difficulty. Seeing this scene, the audience looked at each other in dismay. Looking at this scene, the sorcerers belonging to Saber-Tooth lowered their heads in shame, as if they had no face to see anyone. Looking at this scene, the faces of everyone from Fairy Tale twitched. Looking at this scene, Noah almost covered his face. He really couldn't bear to continue watching. Under the strange atmosphere, Chabadi helplessly picked up the microphone and said this with a face full of shame. Looks like the contestants from the top 3 teams are all suffering from motion sickness. The audience fell silent. Then they burst into laughter. What? So, even the former strongest guild and the current strongest guild have weaknesses? Come on. At least you're still opponents. Don't fall to last place. Good luck. Ha 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 ha. The laughter of goodwill and ridicule continued to echo in the field. After yesterday's exciting competition, everyone had already compared Fairy Tale to Saber-Tooth. After yesterday, the battle between the 2 guilds had been the topic of the audience. Everyone was looking forward to it. Today, would Fairy Tale and Saber-Tooth be able to give equally exciting matches? In the end, in the next day's competition, the 2 guilds that had become the hot topic actually performed so amazingly, which made many people happy. The so-called competition was like this. For the audience, it was actually just entertainment. Therefore, these people would cheer if the performance was wonderful, and they would also cheer if the performance was interesting. As long as they were happy, it was enough for these people. Therefore, the performance of Fairy Tale and Saber-Tooth not only did not cause the audience to be disappointed, but also made the audience feel incomparably happy, and their popularity became even more exuberant. However, that was understandable. The top 3 teams were reduced to this point because of motion sickness, which really made people not know whether to laugh or cry. In this way, the top 3 contestants would undoubtedly occupy the last 3 positions in this competition. The audience couldn't help but laugh out loud at this unexpected outcome. It seems that Naz and Gadjaloo won't be able to win many points for us. Mira held her cheek with one hand and looked helpless. Fortunately, Sting of Saber-Tooth is the same, otherwise it would be too disadvantageous for us. That guy named Sting also can't do anything about transportation. Is that really the weakness of the Dragon Slayer magic shooter? Jubian was puzzled. Also, undoubtedly, when you see the word chariot, you can more or less expect the content of the competition to be related to transportation. Why did you let Mr. Naz and Mr. Gadjaloo play? Those 2 idiots insisted on playing, saying that if they didn't play, it would be considered as running away, so they had to play no matter what. Laxus curled his lips and said, I guess that the Dragon Slayer magic shooter of Saber-Tooth also said that he wanted to play and was afraid that he wouldn't be able to get off the stage, so he braced himself and played together with them, right? What the hell is this? Noah didn't know what to say. Previously, when we were confronting each other, you spoke so highly of yourself. In the end, regardless of whether it was Fairy Tale or Saber-Tooth, both of them ended up like this. Doesn't this make you look like a fool? Well, at least Naz and Gadjaloo haven't given up yet. Mira still looked a little helpless, but she comforted him gently. As long as they don't lose to Saber-Tooth, it's fine. In fact, although Naz and Gadjaloo's faces were ashen, they insisted on crawling forward, pulling away from Sting little by little. Sting's face was ugly at this result. He wanted to crawl forward like Naz and Gadjaloo, but he couldn't do it no matter what. Sting, who understood how difficult it was to move forward in a state of motion sickness, finally had a trace of puzzlement and shock. Why can Naz and Gadjaloo insist on moving forward, but I can't? It wasn't until this time that Sting remembered Noah's words. The so-called guild is a place where companions, family, and friends gather. Only when everyone gathers together can it be called a guild. So we will fight for our companions and become the strongest. And you, at best, are fighting for your reputation, which is not at the same level as our beliefs. So we are different. No, it should be said that you can't compare to us. Thinking of those words at that time, Sting clenched his teeth and fell silent. Is this the difference between me and them? Is this the reason why they can move forward? Could this be the fairy tale? With these doubts in the end, Sting was unable to surpass Naz and Gadjaloo. Naz and Gadjaloo took away the 6th and 7th places respectively, obtaining 2 and 1 points, while he himself got 0 points. Under such circumstances, Sting silently returned to the contestant area amidst the laughter of the audience. The previous provocation of Fairy Tale ended with Sting's complete defeat. However, the conflict between the two guilds did not stop there. Next up is the first duel of the day. Fairy Tale B Team Noah Dole vs Sabertooth Shuanai Agulia. Chapter 1681. What? Sting, who had just returned to the contestants' area, did not even have time to say a word before he was awakened by this unexpected pairing. Shuanai versus that man? Rog, Lucius, and Alyaga were equally shocked. As for Shuanai, she was even more stunned. When she came to her senses, her eyes shone with an unprecedented brilliance, and her jade-like hands slowly clenched and trembled under her coat. It was not because of fear, but because of excitement. Finally, she could finally display her strength in front of that lord. How lucky she was! At this moment, Shuanai was only excited, and not fearful at all. On the contrary, the expressions of Sting, Rog, Lucius, and Alyaga gradually darkened. Because there was no other way. Although Shuanai's strength was not bad, there was still a huge gap between her and one of the 10 great Saint Magi. And her opponent was someone who could easily deal with Jula, who was ranked 5th among the 10 great Saint Magi. Against such an opponent, Shuanai did not have the slightest chance of winning. Hence, the expressions of Sting and the rest were incomparably ugly. On the other side, Noah also showed a somewhat stunned expression because of this unexpected match. How could this be? Julian was caught off guard. It's actually so Noah versus that Star Soul Archmage named Shuanai? Not only Julian, but even Laxus and Gadjaloo looked at Noah in surprise. Previously, Shuanai's persistence towards Noah was something everyone had seen clearly. Although they did not know what relationship Noah had with Shuanai, this matter was definitely not simple. In the end, the organizer actually let Noah and Shuanai have a direct duel. Could it be that this was the so-called fate? Noah! Mira could not help but hug Noah's arm with a worried expression. Hearing Myra's call, Noah gradually withdrew his astonished expression and turned his head to look at Mira. Looking at the worried expression on Myra's face, Noah reached out and patted Myra's hand that was tightly hugging his arm as he spoke softly. Don't worry. I'll be fine. But you still don't know what kind of past you have with that child called Shuanai. Mira seemed to be a little worried. It's too difficult for you to fight that child like this. After all, without knowing what kind of past he had with Shuanai, Noah had no idea where to start. If he was careless and hurt the persistence in Shuanai's heart, it might cause that seemingly strong young girl's heart to shatter into pieces. This way, how could Noah make a move on Shuanai? To be honest, I don't know how to fight that girl named you and I. Noah laughed bitterly. However, this is something that I must face. Perhaps, she and I are destined to end this. Closure. Yes, closure. Although he didn't remember what kind of relationship he had with that girl named Shuanai, her persistence towards Noah was real. This reminded Noah of Versilia Eva's persistence towards Liena Subble in the world of Elven Sword Dance. Liena Subble had once taken down Versilia in the Elven Sword Dance Festival, but she didn't put Versilia in her eyes from the beginning to the end. That extremely prideful Elven had once fallen and did not hesitate to harm her body in future in order to compete with the strongest sword dancer. Why did Versilia not hesitate to go to such extent to win against Lien? The reason, wasn't it to make Lien, who once didn't even look at her, take her seriously? Then, putting himself in her shoes, Noah's life was almost the same as Liena Subble's. It could only be described as a legend. Didn't he hurt some people unintentionally? The answer perhaps was yes. And this person was very likely to be Shuanai. Perhaps, even Shuanai was just one of them. That was hard to say. Therefore, Noah couldn't avoid facing Shuanai. Previously, Noah had been thinking about how to solve Shuanai's problem. However, Noah had been unable to find an answer for a long time. Now, the Great Demonic Arts Festival had directly pushed Noah in front of Shuanai. Then, perhaps this was the world telling Noah. In order to not have any regrets before the final battle, he had to face the girl's persistence. Other than that, there was no other solution. I have to fight this round. Noah gently stroked Myra's head. Don't worry about me. There will always be a way. Hearing this, Mira opened her mouth, but nothing came out.
After a while, Mira smiled. Her delicate face revealed a gentle expression that was no different from before.
I believe in you.
Noah returned a smile and hugged Mira into his arms. After kissing Myra's forehead, he let go of his fiancée in his arms and walked into the arena under the gaze of his companions. At the same time, Xuan'ai also slowly walked into the arena under the gaze of her companions. Not long after, Noah and Xuan'ai entered the arena at the same time. Their gazes instantly met in mid-air.
Oh!
The audience in the arena burst into cheers. Not to mention the audience, even Chapati on the rostrum raised his voice and reported excitedly. Now walking into the arena are Noah Doria from Fairy Tale and Xuan'ai Agulia from Saber-Tooth. In yesterday's competition, both of them had shown extraordinary strength to everyone in the competition segment and duel segment. Today, both of them will meet in the first round of the duel segment. They are the magic shooters from the former and current strongest guilds respectively. This battle will not disappoint us. No matter which side it is, both of them are very powerful. Yajma gave a compliment. I sincerely hope that both of them can have a regret-free competition and let us see the excellence of both guilds.
No regrets.
Cool. No regrets. Cool. Even Jason started to babble nonsense. The atmosphere in the arena was completely brought to a climax. Immediately, cheers resounded in the air above the venue, stirring up the hearts of the contestants of each team. However, Noah and Xuan'ai did not seem to hear the resounding cheers. They looked straight at each other and remained silent.
I've been waiting for this moment to come.
After a long while, Xuan'ai broke the silence and revealed her inner thoughts. In order to show my strength in front of you, I've been persistently training for the past 7 years. Now the time has finally come. Xuan'ai raised her hand and held a star essence key tightly. Her eyes were like torches as she stared at Noah. You don't have to be merciful.
I won't be merciful either. I'll show you all of my strength.
From Xuan'ai's words, Noah could clearly feel an extraordinary strong will. One could imagine what kind of feeling Xuan'ai had when she said those words. In response, Noah only took a deep breath and met Xuan'ai's gaze. If you really wish to fight with me, I can satisfy you. Noah looked straight into Xuan'ai's eyes and said. However, I hope that after the battle, you can tell me everything.
Everything?
Xuan'ai tightened the key in her hand and lowered her head as she muttered softly. What are you referring to? The connection between us, Noah said directly. I don't remember where I met you, nor do I remember what happened between us. I only vaguely remember the name, Xuan'ai. Xuan'ai remained silent, but her hand that was holding the star essence key tightened. After a while, Xuan'ai squeezed out a sentence. It's natural that you don't remember me. To you, it's just an insignificant interlude. However, to me, it's something that I'll never forget in my life. Rather, I'm already very touched that you still remember my name. After saying that, Xuan'ai raised her head and looked at Noah. Beat me and I'll tell you everything. The corner of Noah's mouth lifted slightly. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.